that's built into those tags. Our retail members are deploying tools like RFID technology that allows for them to systematically know as the goods are coming through the supply chain network, when they actually arrive in a store, they're able to bounce that RFID tag frequency against their point of sale system to be able to identify when goods have left their store unpaid for.
RIFD, or radio frequency identification, uses tiny microchips on goods to track them.
And all of these different tools, all these different processes, what it does is just allows for faster efficiency to be able to identify when the compromises happen. And when you tie that back into the camera and surveillance system, you now pinpoint it back down to the person that was the culprit that caused that financial loss.
Even shop shelves are becoming more intelligent now.
Some of our retail members operate in the grocery industry. They operate in the jewelry industry. There are different type of smart shelves out there that look at different weights of goods to be able to identify when a fixture comes off of the counter or when large amounts of quantities of goods are coming off of the shelf.
Like during an organized gang raid, for instance.
And so it's looking for those anomalies in the behavior to be able to identify and say, hey, this could be suspicious, and giving that heads up and being able to capture a record of those events, those suspicious events, for later discovery as well.
And then when it comes to cameras actually looking at people and screening them, what about things like face scanning or body scanning? Is that happening?
So depending upon the state or county or requirements or guidelines that they have to follow from a legal standpoint, we do have members that are deploying biometric technology, whether it is feature recognition. Also, they're leveraging devices that can pick up IP addresses from phone devices that are within the store. So that's where the retailer just has to be savvy with their legal teams and their compliance teams to make sure that they are within the guidelines of the law to be able to deploy the protections that are needed for them to operate their business.
Clearly, this new frontier of shopper surveillance has questions to answer over privacy. But a return to simple human interaction also has a role to play, says Christopher. And many shops are increasing the number of staff customers see on shop floors. What does that say about the power of human interaction to stop a shoplifter?
I'll tell you, our retail members have constantly told us that some of their first lines of defense is greeting a person that's entering into their store. That greet can throw a person's intentions off, and it also could eliminate that opportunistic person from making that bad decision. Or let's say that front-end employee or that guard is wearing a body-worn camera. These are all additional elements that can thwart those bad actors' intentions of depriving those retail environments.
So when it comes to using more technology within a store to prevent shoplifting, is the end game in that situation to stop shoplifting, or is it more to reduce it?
My personal philosophy, as long as the retail setting is a public environment, you'll never really be able to 100% eliminate shoplifting. And so their goal is, one, reducing shoplifting, but more importantly, their goal is minimizing the violent attacks that happen in these events and keeping their employees safe and keeping the consumer safe when they're shopping in the store.
So what's behind the global rise in shoplifting? The factors fueling it are as varied and complex as the offenders. Those on low or no incomes are joined by financially sound opportunists. Some people do it for fun. Unsupervised self-checkouts have unintentionally encouraged more thieves. Then there's the repeat solo offenders and organised gangs stealing and reselling in bulk. Specialist teams, technology and new laws may be trying to curb them. But high underreporting of crimes and an inconsistent justice system only serves to promote the view that for some people, shoplifting is a crime without consequences. This edition of The Inquiry was presented by me, Charmaine Cozier. The producer was Phoebe Keane, researcher Evie Yebsley, editor Richard Fenton-Smith, and technical producer Cameron Ward.
That was The Inquiry from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho here on CBC Radio 1.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in our CBC studios downtown on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app and on YouTube. Thanks for joining us. Our show is on till 8:37 a.m. Let's say good morning to the team, and then we'll dip in a bit of weather and headlines. Sierra Sanders, good morning. Sierra is directing the show, and we'll be covering the commute. Mr. Abby Adiyemi, good morning to you. Abby's our senior tech on the program and covers weather on air. And then rounding out the crew in our control room, Mr. Darren Marash is the producer of our YouTube stream. You might be watching the show stream there. As I mentioned, 3 minutes to 6 o'clock now. In Winnipeg right now, -9. In the province, the cold spot to Dilly Lake, -32, and the warm spot is Melita at -5. Over in Brandon, you're sitting at -6, and up in Thompson, it's partly cloudy and -27. Pretty straight ahead day today, a little milder than yesterday across most of the province. Little snow coming, though, for Thompson. Let's get to Heather now, as mentioned, with our CBC Manitoba news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's health minister says the province already has an interim manager at Golden Door Geriatric Centre. The government took the unusual step of expropriating that Fort Garry personal care home. Uzoma Asaguera says the PCH planned to close at the end of March. It has stopped taking new admissions, and Asaguera says that is unacceptable to have 25 beds sit vacant at Golden Door. They say the government must protect housing and care for seniors. Economic uncertainty and trade disruptions are making it difficult for Manitoba businesses to plan, invest, and grow. That is according to a new survey by Manitoba Chambers of Commerce. 157 businesses responded to that chamber survey. The top two concerns: rising operating costs, government taxes, and regulations. So we'll hear more coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Also in the program this morning, beyond the stories you'll hear in the news, we're going to be talking more about something that has been pitched by Premier Wab Kinew, which is this National Marine Conservation Area near Churchill. We heard from him talk about it yesterday. They're studying it. It could protect Hudson Bay and the largest population of beluga whales in the world. A researcher says it is the right place for the project. We'll find out more about why. And then in the first hour of the show, we're going to hear more about a new documentary about the Four Nations face-off.
On Cue.
I'm Talia Schlanger in for Tom Power. It can be hard to describe music in words, but the award-winning Canadian pianist Bruce Liu does it with desserts.
And even before the concerts, everything I eat is kind of sugar high.
Bruce will be here to talk about why he's trying to incorporate more storytelling into classical music and which Mozart piece tastes like creme brulee.
Cue, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young. The opening ceremony for the 2026 Milano Cortina Olympic Games is just 2 days away, and the competition has already started. Today, Canada is on the ice against Czechia in mixed doubles curling. But it's the other kind of ice that is worrying many people in Italy. ICE agents are part of the U.S. delegation's security. That is being discussed in Italy's parliament this morning. Briar Stewart has more.
Italy's Interior Minister Matteo Piantedosi stood up in a parliamentary session this morning to try to convince Italians that the presence of U.S. immigration and enforcement agents in the country will have no impact on national sovereignty. They will operate exclusively within U.S. diplomatic premises and will carry out analytical and information sharing activities, he said. He said there's nothing new about Italy's cooperation with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. But that hasn't stopped some of the public backlash. Protests have already taken place on the streets of Milan, and more are planned for this weekend, including on Friday, when the opening ceremony will take place. The controversy around ICE has also prompted U.S. Olympic officials to rename a hospitality space set up for the athletes in the city. It had been called the Ice House and now has been rebranded as the Winter House. A wise move, said U.S. figure skater Amber Glenn.
I hope I can use my platform and my voice throughout these games to try and encourage people to stay strong in these hard times. A lot of people say, you're just an athlete, like stick to your job, shut up about politics, but politics affect us all.
Officials with the International Olympic Committee have tried to dismiss any questions about politics, saying it's imperative that the Games aren't embroiled in any ongoing political tensions. But the questions will keep coming, particularly as world leaders and other dignitaries arrive for the opening ceremony this week. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Milan.
British officials are starting a criminal investigation related to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Police are looking into allegations government information was leaked to Epstein by then Cabinet Minister Peter Mandelson in 2009. Mandelson went on to become Britain's ambassador to the U.S. and then a member of the House of Lords. The government has been under fire for Mandelson's ties to Epstein. His name is repeatedly referenced in the Epstein files. Mandelson stepped down from the House of Lords yesterday and denies any wrongdoing. More than a dozen people in Gaza have been killed by Israeli airstrikes. Hospital officials say 6 children are among the dead. The military says its soldiers were fired on in the north of the territory, and it's blaming Hamas for violating the ceasefire. Sasha Petrusik has more from Jerusalem.
Grief swept over Gaza again today as a stream of stretchers arrived at Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City. Bodies of at least 18 Palestinians who died in a series of early morning attacks. Israeli shelling and airstrikes hit tent cities after Israel says its soldiers came under fire overnight. Gunfire from militants, Israel says, severely injured one reservist in the north. At the other end of Gaza, there was a rare burst of joy as a group of Palestinians who'd left for medical treatment during the war were allowed to return. Today, I was reunited with my children for the first time in 2 years, says Yusuf Talla. I'm coming back to war, but at least we are together. Hamas officials say some 40 Palestinians have come back through the Rafah crossing with Egypt, while many others say they were sent back by Israel. 56 have been allowed to leave Gaza, though the flow in both directions is much slower than originally planned under the U.S. brokered ceasefire deal both sides signed. Red Crescent official Raid Naim says the Rafah crossing was closed by Israel once again this morning, at least for the day. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Another round of peace talks are starting between Ukraine and Russia. The U.S. is mediating the talks, which are being held in Abu Dhabi. Russia, though, has intensified its attacks on Ukraine's energy grid. Overnight, at least 100 drones were launched. 6 people are dead. And in Kyiv, some people are doubtful about the talks. This woman says that obviously the war will end through negotiations, but it will not be this month or even this year. She says people will continue to die. This week marks 9 months since Lily and Jack Sullivan vanished without a trace in rural Nova Scotia. And now the silence surrounding their mother has broken. In an exclusive interview with CBC News, members of Malaya Brooks Murray's inner circle are sharing new details about the case and how the family's coping. Angela McIver reports.
It was one of her favorite blankets.
Cheryl Robinson pulls blankets out of a plastic bag belonging to 6-year-old Lily Sullivan and her 5-year-old brother Jack. She's close with the children's mother, Malaya Brooks Murray.
She's just trying to take it day by day.
In early May of last year, Brooks Murray called 911 when she awoke to find Jack and Lily were missing from their rural home an hour and a half outside of Halifax. An extensive grid search of 8.5 square kilometers of dense, rugged terrain turned up little evidence. Cindy Murray is the children's maternal grandmother.
2 kids just go missing without a trace or answers. Doesn't make any sense to me. It's just a nightmare.
Last week, RCMP charged the children's stepfather, Daniel Martel, with assault, sexual assault, and forcible confinement related to an adult complainant. He has not responded to multiple requests for comment, but in early January, he did speak to CBC.
I'd say 100% I'm not considered as a suspect at this point.
Staff Sergeant Rob McCammon with the Nova Scotia RCMP Major Crime Unit says it's still being treated as a missing persons case.
There's times we wish we could say more, but we have to protect the integrity of that investigative process.
McCammon says as far as he's concerned, Jack and Lily Sullivan will not become a cold case. Angela McIver, CBC News, Halifax.
Newfoundland and Labrador is pulling out of a plan to safeguard a marine area. The South Coast Fjords Marine Conservation Area would have protected an area of ocean bigger than Prince Edward Island. It was supposed to be a joint project with Ottawa, but the province's new progressive conservative government says it undermines local industries. Peter Cowan explains.
The ocean off the south coast of Newfoundland is home to rich marine life, leatherback turtles, more than a dozen species of whales, and seabirds. But it's also a rich fishing ground. That's why Dwan Street is glad that the new provincial government no longer supports creating a marine conservation area. She heads up the union representing fish harvesters.
Closing an entire area to all industry, to any resource development, it's going to have its concerns.
The federal government shrunk the conservation area to allow for more fish farming and promised that fishing would continue. But it wasn't enough to keep provincial support.
Just disappointed.
The mayor of Burgeo, Trevor Green, supports the plan that would also see a nearby park get federal protection.
Here's a town that took initiative on their own to create some economic development and put ourselves on the map and revitalize our community, and the government pulled the rug out from under our feet.
A feasibility study is underway. It's not clear what the federal government will now do. The Mi'opakek First Nation chief Brad Benoit hopes the project can still go ahead in some form.
I hope there's a way that we could come to an agreement where industry and conservation can work together as one, and instead of fighting against each other.
If this protected area doesn't move ahead, it will also be a blow to the federal government's goal to protect 30% of the ocean by 2030. Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
The top prize at the most prestigious dog show in the world has a Canadian connection.
Westminster 150 goes to Penny, the Doberman Pinscher. And that's history for Best in Show here at Madison Square Garden.
Penny, the 4-year-old Doberman Pinscher, strutted to Best in Show. Penny's co-owner, Gregory Chen, is from Toronto. He says she is very demanding, very smart, but will do anything for food. Penny is the first Doberman to win Best in Show since 1989. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. If you like the World Report podcast, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps us to spread the word. I'm Marcia Young.
Morning, everyone. Welcome to the middle of the week. It is Wednesday, February 4th. Find myself getting used to saying February. In Winnipeg right now, cloudy. It's -9. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC. 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. We have such a cool conversation coming up this hour about music therapy. You might have a go-to song to calm yourself down. There's a new study that shows listening to specific music and sound beats can reduce anxiety. We're going to talk to the professor who led the research. It might surprise you, though, that it's not all about putting on that song that calms you right away. You might want to start with something different. So we're going to find out all about it just before 7. In addition, this hour on the program, a new CBC original documentary is going to have a closer look at last year's intense Four Nations face-off hockey tournament. Remember when Canada won? And how the sports rivalry and politics met in that moment on the ice. Stay tuned. We're going to talk to the director of Rivals. Right now, 6:11, let's go to our news center for headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, hundreds of Manitobans have been moved into housing as part of the province's strategy to end homelessness. 170 people who once lived in encampments have been housed by the province. The government says another 80 were moved from shelters into social housing. Marion Willis at St. Boniface Street Links says her team connected 386 people with private sector housing last year. The chief of Pimachikamak Cree Nation says about 116 people have returned home following that large-scale evacuation, a days-long power outage in late December causing widespread water damage. About 4,000 people were forced out of their homes that were no longer safe to live in. Chief David Monius is asking the hundreds of remaining evacuees to be patient while tradespeople work to repair their damaged homes. We'll hear more Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's get into the weather forecast today. Abby Adiemi, good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Starting cloudy. And did you notice the warmth already happening outside? It's going to be a warm one into the end of the week.
I didn't even put my toque on when I was walking out of the house to get to the car, which was a first.
Yeah, temperatures will be significantly kind of warmer as we get towards the end of the week, though the northern part of the province still staying cloudy with temperatures on that steady and moderate wind chills. You're still feeling in the northern part of the province. Looking at Winnipeg right now, we're starting mostly cloudy with temperatures currently ranging between -9 at the Forks and -10 at the airport. We noticed some local freezing drizzle overnight. Some areas might still be sporting that, though it's going to be staying mild through the morning, and then we'll just see temperatures hovering a significant temperature between, let's just say, -10 and -8 all morning. We will try to get to -1 before the end of the day in the city today. So for your commute home, you will definitely have like a warm and comfortable ride home. Looking at temperatures across the southern regions, we're seeing temperatures hover from -7 in Dauphin to -11 in Gimli at this time. Most of the areas seeing cloudy conditions. Afternoon highs will be between -5 and some areas might get to 2 degrees later today. Then further north, we're looking at -9 around the Par and -32 in Churchill with ice crystals this morning. But for Winnipeg right now, we're sticking around -10 to -8 all morning before lunchtime, and then we'll see a high for the day get to about -4. Just expect some breezy conditions in the afternoon, but it's going to be a comfortable day.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
I'll take a comfortable day. Let's get into what's happening on the commute, or I guess more correctly, teeing up what you should do if you have a problem. Sierra Sanders is in.
Good morning, Marcy. Not hearing about anything major going on out there on the roads, but I took a quick look at Manitoba 511 this morning, and it looks like a lot of the highways northeast and east of Winnipeg are partly covered or being reported partly covered by Manitoba 511. Same with the south of Winnipeg as you head towards the U.S. border there. Also seeing some covered highways in the Morden-Winkler area there. So be aware if that is somewhere you're traveling or you're getting on the road in those areas today. So northeast of Winnipeg, north of Winnipeg, east of Winnipeg, a lot of the highways are looking or being reported covered or partly covered according to Manitoba 511. And that's just a reminder to check Manitoba 511 if you are getting out on the highways today for up-to-date conditions and any situations that are going on out there. But if there's anything getting in your way today or anything that's causing any backups, I'd love to know about it, whether you're here in the city, out on the highways, wherever you are today. Give me a call. The number is 204-788-3093.
Well, let's start with a story about wildlife here in Canada. Hunting swans in this country is currently illegal, but there's a new tundra swan hunting season that could soon come to our province and other prairie provinces as well. There's proposed changes right now to Canada's migratory bird regulations, and that would create a new swan hunting season in Alberta, Manitoba here, and Saskatchewan. If passed, the season could begin as soon as 2028, and 400 people could be issued a permit in our province every year. But there are some concerns that a similar-looking, more sensitive species of swan might get caught in the crossfire of this. Frank Baldwin is a biologist here in Manitoba and with the federal government's Canadian Wildlife Service. Now, he helped draft the biological assessment for this proposal, and he spoke about it with CBC's Faith Fundal.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Faith.
Why is a new tundra swan hunting season being considered here in Manitoba and other provinces?
Well, as part of our regulatory process, which we complete every 2 years, we receive public comments around different season changes. And one of the things the public asked us to complete is a biological assessment for tundra swan potential hunting season in Manitoba. And so we've completed that and published that as part of this regulatory report. But importantly, this is a notice of consideration. So it's not a formal regulatory proposal to initiate a season in 2026. It would have to go through another round of where a formal proposal. And so the earliest implementation would be 2028.
Frank, swan hunting has been allowed in the U.S. since the 80s, but it's been illegal here in Canada. Why has there not been a swan hunting season here?
Yeah, so the population of tundra swans that we have are eastern population tundra swans. They migrate out of Nunavut and tundra areas of northern Manitoba, and they've been hunted since the 1980s. Importantly, we're part of the management plan for this population since the 1990s. But Canada has never issued a notice of consideration and never held a season. And there's been limited interest in some parts of Canada, but as part of this regulatory proposal process, we did receive a number of requests from stakeholders and went about producing this assessment.
Was that a surprise for you, Frank, in terms of people asking about this, people asking to review whether this is something that can be done?
Not really. I think for a long time, people, hunters have recognized that the species has been harvested elsewhere in the U.S. So there's two populations of tundra swans, a western and an eastern. So about a dozen or more states that currently harvest them in the U.S. And I think just with social media and I think there's just increasing information about what goes on in other places. And there was, there's interest from people in Manitoba and right across the prairies, and also people that travel here to hunt from other parts of Canada also.
Part of that interest also includes concern. CBC spoke with a hunter and biologist, David Duncan, in Alberta, who talked about hunters accidentally shooting trumpeter swans, which looks similar to tundra swans. But what are the risks, would you say, for trumpeter swans here in our province if the season goes ahead?
Yeah, so it's a bit of an interesting case. Trumpeter swans and tundra swans are fairly similar looking species, although a noteworthy difference is their vocalizations. They do have quite different vocalizations. And in parts of the Central Flyway where they've had tundra swan seasons for many years, they've kept track of incidental harvests of trumpeter swans. And in most of those places, it's a tundra swan season only. There is one state where it's a general swan season, and that take of trumpeter swans remains really limited. So they do have registration and check-in systems where they track that, and it averages about 1% to 3% of the harvest each year. So it is the accidental take or incidental take is a potential risk, but it is something that can be tracked. And if we looked at the estimated harvest of swans in here from those potential 400 tags, and then look at what the risk to trumpeter swans is as a fraction of that, it works out to about 3 or 4 swans a year, on average compared to those other jurisdictions. So that trumpeter swan population in Manitoba has been, and across the flyway, has been growing quite rapidly, about 14% on average across Canada and the United States. And so as part of our assessment, we do evaluate the risk of that accidental harvest to trumpeter swans and what that could mean in terms of population implications, but we consider it a low risk.
Right, and so there is that risk, but not high enough that would concern you to not recommend or to not put forward this this potential. People might be asking why I'm asking that question, and of course it's because the trumpeter swan is a species of special concern for this province.
Yeah, that's it's definitely a question that people should ask, and it's dealt with in the assessment that we published. And so what we're hoping for is some public feedback on the mitigation that's been proposed and the total harvest estimates that we've used. And there's a comment period that's open till February 15th for folks to do that.
What sorts of things in previous processes, what sorts of things do you get from people when you have this open period?
Well, we get a variety of comments from all sorts of different regulatory changes we have proposed. So for date changes, sometimes people are opposed to different dates. Sometimes people would like to see higher bag limits. We do get when we post notices of consideration or season proposals for things that typically have not been harvested in a jurisdiction, we do get messages of where people are, fundamentally ethically opposed to the harvest of that species. And those things are all, things that we expect to get with this proposal. but we're especially interested in the public drawing our attention to things that we may have missed, or things that they think that we should consider, or things that they think are issues with our proposed monitoring approach or assessment of harvest or tracking that harvest.
What comes next after this period?
So when the public comment periods closes, we'll review all of the information that we get back. So this is a national process. We have a waterfowl technical committee across CWS, which is biologists from across the country, where we evaluate the different comments that we receive. And then over the next year and a half or so, we'll compile that information. We'll look to address some of those concerns, and then we'll work with our provincial colleagues and also our partners in the US that share that harvest to determine whether this is a proposal that should be advanced as a regulatory proposal in 2027.
Frank, appreciate the time today. Take care.
Thanks a lot.
That is Frank Baldwin, Manitoba-based biologist with the Canadian Wildlife Service. Now, CBC has reached out to Manitoba Natural Resources Minister Ian Bushey for comment. We've yet to receive a response. That conversation with Frank Baldwin, by the way, with CBC's Faith Fundal on Up to Speed yesterday. So there could be some follow-up with our provincial minister today if we get a response there. 6:23 a.m. is the time. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You are on CBC's Information Radio. Well, from wildlife to some wild hockey, last year, politics, nationalism, and an already intense sports rivalry all collided on the ice. Talking about the 2025 Four Nations face-off, culminating in a David and Goliath championship match between Canada and the U.S. Now, while a hockey win for our country is always nice, which happened in overtime, it felt like there was a lot more at stake in these games. Amid President Trump's 51st state rhetoric. Got to put your head back last year at this time, right? It was the time of elbows up. A new documentary looks not only at the intense gameplay and epic ice brawls that were happening during the games, but at how politics bled into the arena and how a whole country reevaluated our national identity. Here's a clip from the trailer.
Wasn't the Olympics, but it felt that big.
The wait is over.
It's been a really long time. We need to get best on best back at those big games where it's country against country and it becomes more than hockey.
Opening night of the Four Nations face-off.
To learn more, Jan Motzkin's here to talk about it. He's director of the documentary called Rivals, the Four Nations Face-Off, and he's in New York. Good morning. Thanks for being with us on CBC.
Good morning, Marcy. Thank you.
You know, when I think about this, before I ask you more about the doc specifically, all I think about is like the whistle blow, and it felt like in 5 seconds the gloves were off. I mean, the intensity right from the start, right?
I mean, it was 3 fights in 9 seconds. We've never seen anything like that in hockey ever.
And when you talk about the fact that, politics bleeding into hockey, did that moment feel like that was actually not about hockey at all?
Well, I was watching the tournament like a lot of people were. And I've been watching hockey since I was a kid. I played as a kid. I'm now a hockey dad. My son is a teenager. So I spend a lot of time around the game. And I was thinking, something feels different in this game. And I was like, what is going on? And so I started asking around to a lot of my friends, Canadian friends, and they all felt the same thing. They was like, why are we thinking about our Canadianness now as we're watching the game? And we haven't really thought about this before. And so that was partly why I wanted to make the film, which is what was going on and why was it going on? And what does this mean for all of us sort of regular people who are just fans of the game and Canadians? It felt like something different in our lifetime.
Yeah, it sure did. Tell me a little bit about how you explore that then in the documentary. Like, who do we hear from?
Well, so we partnered with the NHL. So look, first of all, it's a sports movie and it's a hockey movie. So we partnered with the NHL and the NHLPA and PK Subban, who's one of my producing partners and former Montreal Canadian All-Star. So you hear from him. So we hear from a lot of the great players, both on the Canadian side and on the American side. Connor McDavid, the greatest player on the planet. I talked to Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett and Brandon Hagel, two of the guys that were in that epic brawl. What's cool is that they break down how it went down, why it happened, who said what to whom, which you never really get to hear about when you're just watching a regular game. You just get to see it and then move on. And
try to read their lips, right?
Exactly. But they were mic'd. So we had the mic. So we were able to hear what they're saying.
Yeah.
And then Matthew Tkachuk and Brady Tkachuk, the brothers on the American side, great players, but they were also in that brawl. And then we hear from,
we love to hate the Tkachuk, even though we have Tkachuk history with the Jets here. So
I know,
yeah.
I know. You love to hate them, but that's why they're so good.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I interrupted you there. You were going to go on with who else you hear from beyond the players.
No problem. But speaking of Winnipeg, we spent some time with Chantal Kreviazak, Grammy-winning singer-songwriter who is from Winnipeg, and she invited us to her parents' home, where she grew up in Winnipeg, and that was really great. And she's in the film because she changed the words to the national anthem at the game.
That's right.
Which became a big sort of flashpoint for people. Justin Trudeau, the former prime minister.
Yep. I'm curious, Jan, we talked about, and we both started almost connecting. You could feel that Canadianness, right? And how we sort of felt that moment. And you said a lot of people, you talked to your Canadian friends, felt that moment. What did the Americans say?
So that's a really good question. One person that I spoke to was a writer named Nick Baumgarten. He writes for The New Yorker. He's a big hockey writer as well. And it's funny, he says in the film, he talks about the rise of USA hockey and how this idea of underdogs and favorites and bullies. And as an American, he thinks, okay, America has always been an underdog. Now, hockey-wise, America and Canada are sort of equal, and so they're rivals. But as an American fan, he said, you know what? I really want Canada to win. Canada needs this because think what you will politically, but what Donald Trump was saying and doing in terms of the 51st state and annexing Canada, that wasn't right. And people just wanted the underdog, in this case, Canada, politically, to stand up and fight back against the bully.
With the Olympics about to start this week, I wonder whether we're going to see the same kind of heated rivalry continue with the same kind of intensity, especially with the NHL players back in the Olympics.
I mean, you said it yourself, the rivalry is only going to get more heated. Look, you've got the best players in the world, Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Austin Matthews, the Tkachuks, who, other than the Four Nations, have never played best on best international hockey in their careers. So they got a taste of it in the Four Nations. And so to be able to represent their country at the Olympics, it's going to be magnified by 10.
And now they're singing for the anthem to be played to the world and the flag to be raised to the banners. Thank you so much, Jan, for telling us more about your documentary, and congrats on it.
Thank you very much.
That is Jan Motzkin with us live from New York, the director of Rivals, the Four Nations Face-Off. You can watch it exclusively, the Canadian premiere, on Thursday. So this is tomorrow. Check it out on CBC Television at 8 o'clock or stream it on CBC Gem. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You are on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app, or maybe you're streaming on YouTube this morning. We'll have a full look at your weather forecast for this Wednesday. Coming up right now, your CBC News, though, from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is -9, a cloudy Wednesday, and warming up. This is just the start. We've got a high today of -4, even warmer tomorrow. We will feel the wind gusting from the south this afternoon with a very slight chance of snow. Even warmer in western Manitoba today. A provincial strategy to end homelessness has led to more than 200 people finding housing. 170 people who used to live in encampments have been housed by the province as part of the Your Way Home strategy. Another 80 were moved from shelters into social housing. Meanwhile, one outreach organization says it housed more than one person a day last year. Marion Willis is the executive director of St. Boniface Street Links.
January 1st last year to December 31st. We housed 386 people, I believe, is what our records show, our data shows. And we dismantled, in total, 44 encampments.
The province says 100 encampments have been dismantled. It has set a goal to end chronic homelessness by 2031. A Winnipeg mother has been sentenced to more than 2 years after her 23-month-old daughter died from fentanyl intoxication in 2023. CBC's Caitlin Garlick was in court.
Sabrina Boulette wiped tears from her eyes as she was sentenced Tuesday. She previously pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the death of her 23-month-old daughter, Hannah Boulette. Emergency services responded to their home in March 2023 after the girl's father, Gary Bruce, called 911. Almost a year later, police announced Hannah's parents had been charged with manslaughter. An autopsy found she died from high levels of fentanyl intoxication. The girl's father pleaded guilty last month and was sentenced to time served. With credit for her time in custody, Boulette will serve just over 5 more months. Court heard the parents initially denied there were drugs in the home. Boulette eventually told police they lied about what happened. She said she didn't call 911 because she feared their daughter would be taken from them. Court heard Tuesday while the girl's father was an active drug user at the time, Boulette was in treatment for her addiction. The judge who sentenced her said he had hope for her future and encouraged her to get grief counseling. Caitlin Gowerluck, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba's health minister says the province already has an interim manager at Golden Door Geriatric Centre. The government took the unusual step of expropriating that Fort Garry personal care home. Uzoma Asaguera says the PCH planned to close at the end of March. It had stopped taking new admissions. Asaguera says it's unacceptable to have 25 beds sit vacant at Golden Door.
For far too long, too many seniors have been unable to have access to that home. And so we've got somebody on the ground who's going to be working very hard to make sure we can start readmitting residents to that PCH.
Asaguera says there will be no public expropriation hearings. They say the government must protect housing and care for seniors. Now, Maurice Tryhook's wife lives at Golden Door. He saw a sign about a change of ownership, but had no idea the province had taken over. And he wondered for months what was going on at that care home.
When I first was approached about coming here, it was a matter of waiting for months. And now I go over here and I see vacancies. Well, it doesn't add up.
Tryhook is thankful his wife won't have to move. He says there is a huge demand for personal care beds in Manitoba. Well, slowly but surely, some evacuees are returning to Pimicikamat Cree Nation. Chief David Monia says about 116 people have gone back. A days-long power outage caused widespread water damage. Frozen or burst pipes and flooding meant hundreds of homes in that northern First Nation were no longer safe to live in. Monias isn't sure exactly how much longer it will be before houses are repaired and everyone can go back.
They're looking at maybe 5 to 10 houses. Is what they're looking per day. But how long that takes depends on the severity of the damage that's in the house.
Approximately 4,000 people were forced out. Monias says evacuees are in need of food, clothing, feminine products, and baby supplies. He says if anyone wants to help, they can drop off donations at the Best Western Plus on Wellington Avenue in Winnipeg. Trade tension and economic uncertainty, as well as public safety, those are the top concerns of Manitoba businesses. That's according to a new survey. The Manitoba Chambers of Commerce asked business how optimistic they feel. The survey also asked about expectations for revenue and what the government could do to make the province more appealing as a place to live and work. Michael Asante is a researcher at the Brandon-based Rural Manitoba Economic Development Corporation.
If you compare businesses in Winnipeg and in rural, most businesses in Winnipeg are concerned about public safety compared to rural.
Among the 157 businesses that responded to the survey, a double-digit drop in optimism, down from 60% last year to 44% this year. Well, the Milan Cortina Winter Olympics officially begin Friday with the opening ceremony, but some competition begins today with a handful of mixed doubles curling games, including Canada versus the Czech Republic. The first medal events take place Saturday. You can watch the games on CBC television and on our website. And you can find more national and international news coming up on World Report at 7, and more Manitoba news, as always, at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
And our updates here locally from the Olympic Games will change your radio wheel on the morning show. It means that it's 6:25, 7:25, and at 8:25 every morning, you're going to get a 5-minute report from the games, which will take you right into your local news. So we look forward to that. It starts on Friday. Right now, let's get into what Abby's calling car wash day with our forecast.
Yeah, it's a mild one in the southern part of the province. So this is your day if you want to do it before the roads will be getting messy. We still have cold conditions in the north. We're looking at wind chill still in the valleys of minus 40s to minus 41s in some of the areas. But for Winnipeg right now, mostly cloudy conditions. Temperatures hovering between minus 9 at the Forks and minus 10 at the airport. It's going to stay around that range for the morning before we reach a high of minus 4 sometime in the afternoon. We have a slim chance of some flurries. You might spot it, you might not spot it, but it's in the forecast that you might spot it down south, and we might notice some in the city. Those cloudy conditions will remain with us, and even those slim chance of flurries would remain with us into the evening period before we see our temperatures get close to minus 1 for the overnight period. And tomorrow, Marcy, we hit a high of 2 degrees in the city. For the Pembina Valley region, we're looking at minus 11 at this time. We're heading to a high of 2 degrees. Some windy conditions on its way. Slim chance of afternoon light flurries in that part of the province. For Brandon, minus 5 and cloudy. Some fog patches spotted here and there. That should clear as you get into the morning. You see a high of 0 for folks in the Westman region today. In the Parkland region, around Dauphin, conditions are cloudy at this time. Minus 7, also spotted fog there, dissipating. Temperatures will climb to 1 for folks in the Dauphin region. While for Gimli, we're looking at minus 11, warming up to minus 6. A slim chance of light snow also coming with some winds from the south. The Pa, Flin Flon, Yard to tie. Here we're seeing minus 9 in that part of the province. Cloudy. You're heading to a high of 0. A good chance of some snow and blowing snow in that part of the province later in the day. Thompson is sitting at minus 24 at this time. Partly cloudy conditions. You will reach a high of minus 10 later today. You're also going to get some snowy conditions coming your way. Your wind chill this morning feels like minus 30 though. To Dooley Lake, we're looking at minus 30. There you climb to minus 18 later. Snow in the forecast. Your wind chill feels like minus 37. While for Churchill, we see ice crystals there. Minus 32 at this time. You reach a high of minus 23, and the wind chill feels like minus 41. Frostbite in minutes. So it's more like we will notice the warm in the southern part of the province along with the cloudy conditions we get, and maybe some areas might just see snow throughout the day. But Winnipeg right now, we're looking at minus 9 before we warm up to minus 4, and I love that minus 1 later in the evening.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Let's get into the morning commute. Sierra Sanders has been checking the highways.
Good morning, Marcy. Been quiet on the commuter line this morning, not getting too many calls right now, but it is still quite early in the morning, so folks are just getting up and getting out on the roads right now. But yeah, a quick look at the highways. We are seeing a lot of highways north of Winnipeg, northeast of Winnipeg, east of Winnipeg being reported by Manitoba 511 as partly covered as well. We're seeing Highway 59 running down through St. Malo, Niverville, Ile-des-Chênes being reported as covered. So you want to keep that in mind if that is in your area as well, seeing highways covered in the Morden-Winkler area as well. So you want to keep that in mind if you are getting out on the highways this morning, and make sure to check Manitoba 511 in the future if you are heading out on the highways today for up-to-date conditions and any situations that are going on out there. But in terms of today, if there's something going on out there on your commute, whether you are here in the city or wherever you are traveling in the province, I'd love to hear about it. Give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Sierra. Time for Christley Ramlakan to take over the airwaves with business news. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So we have another Canadian retailer filing for creditor protection, and you alluded that this is probably the way they were going.
Yeah, that's right. So Toys R Us Canada has filed for creditor protection now. The business has closed 53 stores in the past 2 years, and it's facing a number of lawsuits from unpaid suppliers and landlords. We had talked about that before. So creditor protection temporarily shields a company from having to pay those it owes as it figures out its next steps. So the company has struggled with inflation, rising labor costs, supply chain disruptions, and the shift to e-commerce. So Toys R Us says it owes at least $120 million to its vendors and substantial amounts to its landlords. 22 stores remain open, but the company warns it may reduce the number of locations. And a third-party monitor set to guide the company through creditor protection says liquidating stores, furniture, and equipment are also options, so we could see some sales. And Putnam Investments bought the business in 2021. The company is also behind HMV, Sunrise Records, Ricky's, Clio, and Northern Reflections. And over the holidays, it closed all of its tea kettle stores. And before that, shuttered a short-lived home goods venture called Rooms and Spaces. And its sister company, Everest Toys, started by the father of Putnam Investments leader Doug Putnam, was forced into receivership last year.
That's a lot of retailers that it owns that are also struggling. Next, why are some countries moving away from meeting platforms like Zoom and Teams?
Well, around Europe, governments and institutions are seeking to reduce their use of digital services from U.S. big tech companies. So they are turning to domestic or free alternatives instead. So, for example, in France, civil servants will ditch Zoom and Teams for a homegrown video conference system. Soldiers in Austria are using open source software after the military dropped Microsoft Office, and bureaucrats in a German state have also turned to free software. So the push for digital sovereignty is gaining attention as the Trump administration increases tensions with the continent, such as talking about trying to take over Greenland. And there are fears that Silicon Valley giants could be compelled to cut off access to digital tools. And concerns about data privacy and worries that Europe is not keeping up with American and Chinese tech are also fueling the drive. So Microsoft says it continues to partner closely with the government in France, and the company says it is focused on providing customers with greater choice, stronger data protection, and resilient cloud services, ensuring that data stays in Europe under European law.
And finally, why are Costco's popular rotisserie chickens getting roasted in a lawsuit?
Yeah, so a new lawsuit in California has a bone to pick with how the retailer advertises its cooked birds. So a proposed class action lawsuit alleges the retail giant has systematically cheated customers out of millions of dollars by falsely advertising its Kirkland rotisserie chicken as containing no preservatives. So Costco uses sodium phosphate and carrageenan, which extend shelf life and maintain texture. And the ingredients are common in prepared foods, and federal regulators, including Health Canada, have listed them as safe. But the lawsuit says the claim is misleading. So 2 California women who initiated the lawsuit say they would have not purchased the chicken or would have paid less had they known it contained preservatives. Now, Costco says it has removed its no preservatives references to maintain consistency among its labeling and signs, and it says it uses the ingredients to support moisture retention, texture, and product consistency. But you know that both ingredients are approved by food safety authorities.
That's all I got for you. All right, Crystalie, I always am interested in these stories where customers take something forward. I think it's a human thing where sometimes you might have a moment with something you buy and you think about it, but those people that actually go through with taking cases forward, very interesting. And in this case, change labeling. So, all right, thank you.
Right.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks, Marcy.
Crystalie Ramlakan with our business news. Cloudy -9 in Winnipeg, and also cloudy over in Brandon -5. Up in Thompson, partly cloudy -24, and you're expecting some snow today. Next on CBC, we have recently been covering some stories about gold. Sellers and buyers in Winnipeg. Sellers are saying that they're dealing with lineups out the door in some cases. Winnipeg's Gate West Coin, for example, had more customers bringing in scrap gold for sale, according to Jasmine Allen, the store's vice president. She also says there's been more clients interested in purchasing gold, not necessarily to wear, but as an investment. Now, this trend is happening all across Canada. Last week, gold hit record prices at $7,000, Canadian an ounce. And then it dropped significantly last Friday, and that put people then in a buying mood. The CBC's Hallie Cotnam spoke with people waiting in line at a shop in Ottawa.
I have pieces from grandmothers, great-grandmothers that are not sentimental to me. I kept my good pieces, and I might as well have the cash in my pocket. I can remember when gold was $285 and now it's $4,000 something, so it'll go back to $285 someday. I might as well get it when I can.
What will you do if you get a windfall?
I'm going on a trip in 2 weeks.
Where are you going?
Mexico.
This will help pay for that.
Well, to bring my daughter's gold.
Did you give her the gold over the years?
No, inherited from grandparents. Nobody will use it anyways, and she needs something to start to go to Montreal. So
it's going to give her a start in her new life.
Yeah, well, she needs some money to pay the rent, I think.
Well, because I have it sitting at home, never use it, and the prices are high.
What is it specifically? Is it necklaces or?
Yeah, rings, pendant.
Sentimental?
No, well, one is, so I may not sell it, but a pendant, a St. Christopher's medallion. So I got 30 or 40 years ago, yeah. But, I never wear it, so yeah. Knew there's a bit of a sell-off or something, and prices drop, but who cares, eh? It's still worth a lot more now than what it was before.
I'm selling a bit of gold that my grandfather gave me, and it's going to cover my maternity leave.
Wow, that's so meaningful.
Yeah.
Is your grandpa still with you?
He's not, unfortunately. So he'd given us this as, for an emergency or for big things. So this is a big thing. And I'd looked at the prices before and then noticed they jumped. I was like, okay, let's do it now.
What are you here, selling or buying?
I'm picking up my purchase from last week. At the height, stupid me, but who's to know, right? Long term, I'm not looking at this as an investment. It's a hedge.
Against?
When our dollar tanks, when our system crumbles.
Whose system?
Probably the Western world.
Yes, I'm buying. It's more valuable than cash in my perspective right now, considering where everything is going and what's happening in the world. I think it's just better than because I have liquid and I want to get rid of the liquid, so I believe that just might as well get metals.
Well, did you see what happened on Friday?
Yeah, it dropped about 20%, 25%.
And you thought to yourself,
it's time to buy. Just go for it.
So when I went in, she just checked my ID. I gave her the coin, which is a quarter ounce. She pulled up the price from their system, which was $1,600. And then she checked it to make sure that the gravity's correct with her little device. I decided to go with a check. She wrote it up.
May I see the check?
Yeah, sure, if you want to. Yeah. I'm going to pay off a line of credit, or at least a chunk of it, To the bank.
To the bank.
Hallie Cotnam in Ottawa talking to people who are either buying or selling while the price for gold holds near record highs. And if you want to read the story that I was citing, you can check out our website. We recently went to gold buyers and sellers here in Winnipeg and found the same exact trend going on here. That's online at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
The Olympics feature the best curling talent on the planet, while in Winnipeg, slightly less talented curlers gather to throw rocks on the frozen Assiniboine River. Rock the River is back February 6th to 8th in support of the Heart and Stroke Foundation. Enter a team and join CBC to experience a Canada Mixed Curling Olympic matchup live streamed on the frozen river. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
The world is counting down to the Milano Cortina 2026 opening ceremony. A bold celebration of Italian art and culture, united by the Olympic spirit. Featuring show-stopping performances by icons Mariah Carey and Andrea Bocelli, and a tribute to Giorgio Armani. Plus the Parade of Nations with Team Canada. It all begins Friday, February 6th at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, live from Milan. Watch free on CBC and CBC Gem.
Time right now is 10 to 7 on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. This is your morning show from downtown Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa on Information Radio. Well, we all have our comfort songs. Some people like classical music, some like country, some like heavy metal. But before you think of your relaxing song, have a listen to this piece of music. I feel relaxed already. I don't know about you. This is one of the tracks used in a recent trial studying music and stress levels. It found listening to songs like this for 28 minutes reduced anxiety among participants. Frank Russo, psychology professor over at Toronto Metropolitan University, led the study and is here to explain. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning.
So how did this trial work?
We recruited people living with anxiety who were taking medication for their anxiety. We found them online. We recruited over 1,000 people for the study, and 144 of them ended up meeting our criteria. We then randomly allocated them into different conditions. One of the conditions would have been listening to the kind of music you just played, and they would have been listening to it for approximately 28 minutes. Another group of people would have listened to the same kind of music for about 12 minutes. Third group would have listened for about 40 minutes. And then what we call a control condition would have listened to pink noise. So not music, but something that's also found to be relaxing by some people.
And then what did you find? And tell me more about what makes it significant.
Yeah, so we did find that 24 and 40 minutes was more effective than 12 minutes. So in clinical terms, you'd call that a dose effect, that when you increase the dose, you get more of an effect. So that's great. And we found that 24 minutes was no different from 40 minutes. So we'd conclude from that 24 minutes is enough to reduce state anxiety in people living with anxiety. How did we do it? What I'll say to explain it briefly is that it's a sequence of music. That particular piece that you heard probably came towards the end because it is quite calm sounding. The initial piece of music that's selected by the system always resembles the listener's current mood state. So if the person reports that they're depressed, the initial piece of music is going to sound a bit depressed. If they report that they're feeling anxious, the initial piece of music is going to feel a bit anxious. But over the 24 minutes, the different track selections are going to nudge you towards calm. So it's kind of guiding the listener through a mood space towards their intended mood. The other thing that you may have heard is a slight warble in the sound or a flickering in the volume.
Mm-hmm.
That's a separate technology called binaural beats that maybe you've come across on YouTube or TikTok or something like that. There are a lot of unsubstantiated claims about binaural beats, but what we do know from scientific work is that it can entrain the brain and it has its own relaxing effect independent of the music. So basically we took these binaural beats and we embedded them in the music in a way that is aesthetically pleasing.
And so are you saying the word is binaural? Sorry.
Binaural.
Yeah.
Binaural.
And does that have to do with
ears.
the cadence of the beat, like how?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So basically there's a flickering of the sound 4 times a second or at 4 hertz. And we have neurons in our brain that are firing at the same rate. And what we think is going on is that we are entraining the brain to fire in a way that it fires when we are already relaxed.
That's fascinating, Frank.
Yeah.
So 144 people in the trial. I don't know, when you look at that scientifically, do we know those results can be replicated?
Yeah, we do. So there are trials that require thousands of people, and there are trials that only require 100 people. It really depends on how many different things you're comparing, how variable is your population, and how potent is the intervention that you're looking at. So we did this study knowing what the effect size would be based on prior work. So we recruited the appropriate, we registered the trial and we recruited the number of people that we said we would need to recruit, and we found statistically significant findings. So this is the kind of finding you would expect to replicate. And as I say, we've already replicated it. So there you go.
And just as a last question, I think it's fascinating when you talked about if someone's in an anxious state, the first piece might be a bit anxious or, you know, or might be a bit depressed if that's the starting mood. Is that a technique that you think can be applied? Like if someone's listening, instead of putting on a song that can calm me down, if I don't feel calm to start with, I maybe should go on a journey to bring myself down musically.
I think that totally your listeners can try to make this work. It's really challenging, I would say, to do it in the moment. Sometimes listening to depressed music can increase the rumination and keep you in a cycle of depression. But if you've already got a set of playlists ready where you've got the sequencing set up, then I think this can be really effective. But without that guide, without the automated playlist, a music therapist, or the system that we've deployed, then there is the risk that someone's just going to keep listening to the music that's in their current mood state. So they're going to stay in their funk, if you like, and not break out of it. But yes, by all means, if you have the wherewithal to listen to your favorite tunes and organize them into playlists that have a starting mood and an end mood, I think you can replicate the kinds of effects that we got in this study.
It's so interesting. Leave us with a quick website before we run out of time here where people can maybe read more about your work.
Yeah, well, I'm at smartlaboratory.ca. That's where my lab is. And the company that we're working with here is Lucid Therapeutics, and you can find them at lucidtherapeutics.com.
All right, super. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Frank Russo, psychology professor over at Toronto Metropolitan University. If you want to tell us what song calms your mind, maybe we'll get it on the show today, 788-3205. Well, staying with music, what happens when you mix live symphony music with live wrestling?
Well, there's a lot of orchestral music that is very violent and very rough and very, very energetic. So it actually goes really well with wrestling in a soundtrack kind of way.
Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra's conductor there describing professional wrestling event happening tonight at the WSO. We're going to hear more about that later in the show, and we hope you watch our stream because we've got video. Our medical column today is about getting outside for winter, which is great for your physical well-being, but it's not without risks, so we'll talk about some of those risks. And we'll hear more about what the Premier proposed yesterday, a national marine conservation area near Churchill that could protect Hudson Bay, and the largest population of beluga whales in the world. A researcher about why they think this is the right place for this project. So stay tuned. That's all still ahead in the next hour of the show. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells for other news from Manitoba. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's health minister says the province already has an interim manager at Golden Door Geriatric Centre. The government took the unusual step of expropriating that Fort Garry personal care home. Uzoma Asaguera says the PCH planned to close at the end of March. It had stopped taking new admissions. Asaguera says it is unacceptable to have 25 beds sit vacant at Golden Door. Economic uncertainty and trade disruptions are making it difficult for Manitoba businesses to plan, invest, and grow. That is according to a new survey by the Manitoba Chambers of Commerce. We'll hear more about it coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
Thanks, Heather. -9, cloudy in Winnipeg, a high today of -4. 30% chance we'll see some light snow into this afternoon. Check 511 in case the highways are covered, especially around Ward and Winkler. They're pretty snowy today. 788-3093 if you need to get us on the commute. World Report next.
Have you visited CBC's Being Black in Canada website? It's an online platform to explore the stories and experiences of Black Canadians across the country. A space for news, documentaries, arts and culture, Black achievement in sports, and so much more. Celebrating a uniquely Canadian perspective on Black issues with the cultural moments that matter to Black Canadians. Visit cbc.ca/Being Black in Canada.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The latest cache of Epstein files has brought down a British aristocrat. Peter Mandelson is resigning from the House of Lords over emails exchanged with the late sex offender.
Mandelson betrayed our country, our parliament, and my party.
Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer speaking during a parliamentary session today. Mandelson is a former cabinet minister. The emails suggest he gave Epstein sensitive government information in 2009. Now British police are launching a criminal investigation. Anna Cunningham has more from London.
British politics has faced many scandals over the decades from all political colours, but this has the potential to top them all. A senior Labour Party member, once the UK's Trade Commissioner to the EU, often described as the architect of modernising the Labour Party, led by British Prime Ministers Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. Peter Mandelson was appointed a peer of the realm to the House of Lords.
Well, Mr President, thank you very much indeed.
And most recently, the UK's ambassador to the US.
What a beautiful accent.
Until he was sacked by Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who himself faces opposition questions on his judgment appointing Mandelson in the first place. Mandelson's ties to Jeffrey Epstein were always known, but it's the depth of his links that have shocked the nation. Mandelson faces allegations that as business secretary working at the heart of Gordon Brown's government in 2009, he leaked highly sensitive government policy discussions during a major economic crisis to Epstein. Even within today's governing Labour Party, there is deep anger.
A gross betrayal of two prime ministers, of our country's national interest,
says Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, adding,
it's a betrayal of our values.
Mandelson resigned his Labour Party membership Sunday. Tuesday, in the unelected House of Lords,
received notification from Lord Mandelson of his intention to retire from the House.
Mandelson denies he acted criminally. The police will now decide if there are criminal charges to pursue. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
Pope Leo is adding his voice to those calling on the U.S. and Russia to renew a critical nuclear arms control treaty.
Domani giunge a scadenza il trattato New START.
Leo urges both countries not to let the New START treaty expire tomorrow. Washington and Moscow signed the agreement 16 years ago. The treaty limits the nuclear warheads of both countries and allows each country to monitor the other. In September, Russian President Vladimir Putin proposed an extension, but so far U.S. President Donald Trump has not responded. The Palestinian Red Crescent Society says the Rafah border crossing is closed for medical patients. Ambulances sound their horns trying to make their way to the border between Gaza and Egypt. Thousands of Palestinians are waiting to cross for treatment. The Rafah border reopened 2 days ago for a small number of patients. Today, Israel says it has not received the necessary coordination details from the World Health Organization for more crossings. In Gaza, violence continues. Israeli tank shelling and airstrikes killed at least 21 people. Israel says it launched the attacks after a gunman shot at Israeli soldiers. The opening ceremony for the 2026 Milano Cortina Olympic Games is just 2 days away, and the competition has already started. Today, Canada is on the ice against Czechia in mixed doubles curling. But it is the other kind of ice that is worrying many people in Italy. ICE agents are part of the U.S. delegation security. That's being discussed in Italy's parliament this morning. Bar Stewart has more.
Italy's Interior Minister Matteo Piantedosi stood up in a parliamentary session this morning to try to convince Italians that the presence of U.S. immigration and enforcement agents in the country will have no impact on national sovereignty. They will operate exclusively within U.S. diplomatic premises and will carry out analytical and information sharing activities, he said. He said there's nothing new about Italy's cooperation with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. But that hasn't stopped some of the public backlash. Protests have already taken place on the streets of Milan, and more are planned for this weekend, including on Friday, when the opening ceremony will take place. The controversy around ICE has also prompted U.S. Olympic officials to rename a hospitality space set up for the athletes in the city. It had been called the Ice House and now has been rebranded as the Winter House. A wise move, said U.S. figure skater Amber Glenn.
I hope I can use my platform and my voice throughout these games to try and encourage people to stay strong in these hard times. A lot of people say, you're just an athlete, like stick to your job, shut up about politics, but politics affect us all.
Officials with the International Olympic Committee have tried to dismiss any questions about politics, saying it's imperative that the Games aren't embroiled in any ongoing political tensions. But the questions will keep coming, particularly as world leaders and other dignitaries arrive for the opening ceremony this week. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Milan.
We are learning more about the Monday night crash that killed 3 junior hockey players in Alberta. Officials say the teens were attempting to drive across a highway. 2 of the 3 teenagers were from Kamloops. The CBC's Caroline Bargout is there with the latest.
In Kamloops, people are coming to terms with the news. 2 of the 3 teenagers who died in a car crash in Alberta are from here. Cameron Casorso and JJ Wright were 18. They died on their way to hockey practice alongside their 17-year-old teammate Caden Fine from Alabama. Marie Reiger's thoughts are with their families.
We think of them. We feel very close to young families and the hockey players here, so we understand and wish them the best.
RCMP say the crash happened about 100 kilometers south of Calgary, just outside of Stavely, Alberta. A semi-truck hauling gravel was heading northbound on Highway 2. The teens were in a vehicle traveling east on a secondary roadway. Corporal Gina Slaney says their car was attempting to cross the highway.
That vehicle would have had to come across the 2 of the southbound lanes and then stop in the median and then proceed through. So when they proceeded through, that's when that passenger vehicle was hit by the semi-truck.
Shelley Lampro's kids were childhood friends of JJ's.
It's really hard to wrap your mind around. Somebody that you've watched grow up, just suddenly gone.
Her daughter, Jada Ray, met JJ on the first day of kindergarten and became fast friends.
When I look back on my childhood, he's always there. He was the funniest person that I knew.
The teens were playing their first season with the Southern Alberta Mustangs. Their next game has been cancelled as the players come to terms with their loss. Caroline Bargood, CBC News, Kamloops, British Columbia.
Alberta's NDP leader Naheed Nenshi has a message for those running for the party's federal leadership. Stay out of his way. As the federal party looks to rebuild, Nenshi is pushing what he calls a progressive provincial agenda. And as David Thurton reports, Nenshi says now is not the time for ideological battles within the party.
I wanted to make sure that anyone who aspires to lead any federal party really understands the dynamic of what's going on in Alberta.
Naheed Nenshi is the province's NDP leader. With the federal party leadership contest underway, he's mostly staying out of it. Nenshi says he's focused on becoming Alberta's next premier, but he's inserting himself in the federal race in other ways.
I've had the opportunity to speak with 3 front-running candidates.
In an interview with CBC News, Nenshi suggested he gave them a bit of advice not to stand in the way of his attempt to form the next NDP government in Alberta.
We don't have the luxury in Alberta to get caught up in ideological battles either within our own party.
Nenshi didn't mention any particular candidate, but Avi Lewis, with his opposition to growing oil and gas production, clashes with Nenshi's views on energy.
We've been a party of climate clarity for a long time, and we will continue to be so.
Lewis, while not moderating his views on fossil fuels, says he still passionately supports the provincial sections.
We will do anything we can to help Naheed Nenshi be the next premier of Alberta.
Nenshi is not endorsing any of the federal NDP candidates. In fact, he's not even going to cast a ballot in March's leadership vote, opting out of getting a membership to the federal party. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
The top prize at the most prestigious dog show in the world has a Canadian connection.
Westminster 150 goes to Penny, the Doberman Pinscher.
Penny, the 4-year-old Doberman Pinscher, strutted to Best in Show. Penny's co-owner, Gregory Chan, is from Toronto. He says she's very demanding, very smart, but will do anything for food. Penny is the first Doberman to win Best in Show since 1989. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Cute. Love Westminster. 7:10's the time right now. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. You're on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Wednesday morning, February 4th. Here we go, folks. -9 is where we've been. Abby's going to update our temperature in a moment here. Have a look at what the day is going to bring. This hour on the show, we've got a fun story about something going on. Orchestral music is going to meet pro wrestling tonight at the Winnipeg Centennial Concert Hall with WSO. CBC's Jim Agapito has that story, and we hope you're watching the stream on YouTube because we got some great visitors. In addition, on our medical column, how do you get outside during the winter and still keep your physical well-being intact? When should you wear a helmet? How should you be walking on ice? We're going to talk more about that. In addition, the Premier, Wab Kinew, announcing funding for a study for the potential of a national marine conservation area near Churchill. This hour, we're going to have an environmentalist weigh in. So stay tuned. We're going to hear more about that. Right now, let's get to what's going on with the news otherwise. Heather Wells is in with our headlines.
A Winnipeg mother has been sentenced to more than 2 years after her 23-month-old daughter died from fentanyl intoxication in 2023. Sabrina Boulette wiped tears from her eyes as she was sentenced yesterday. She previously had pleaded guilty to manslaughter. We'll hear more coming up. Hundreds of Manitobans have been moved into housing as part of the province's strategy to end homelessness. 170 people who once lived in encampments have been housed by the province. The government says another 80 people were moved into shelters, or from shelters into social housing. And Marion Willis at St. Boniface Street Link says her team connected 386 people with private sector housing last year. I'll be back with more Manitoba News at 7:30.
Thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
All right, into the forecast as mentioned. Abby, where are we at?
Yeah, we're waking up to a mild day across the southern part of the province this morning, though we have a slim chance of light snow in the forecast. While the north, we're still seeing some snowy conditions sweeping through the regions. You will notice the wind chills this morning. It feels close to minus 41 in the Churchill region at this time. For Winnipeg and the Red River Valley region, we're looking at temperatures around minus 10 at this time. Mostly cloudy skies. That will be the condition all through the day. Temperatures will hover near minus 10 all morning before we reach a high of minus 4 with some winds from the south. The wind chill, though, not going to get close to minus 20. We're going to see it around minus 17. And then tonight, a slim chance of snow and temperatures will get close to minus 1 overnight. For the southern part of the province, we're looking at a mix of foggy conditions and cloudy conditions around minus 8 this morning for most of the regions. Highs would reach 1 degree for some areas, though the winds will be picking up by the noon period. While for the north, we're looking at harsh conditions as the snow and blowing snow still makes temperatures more like in the freezing region for the Churchill side. We're seeing blowing snow around the par for this time. Winnipeg right now, minus 10. Cloudy conditions. We warm up to minus 4 later.
All right, let's get into the morning commute. Sierra Sanders in with some details.
Good morning. Got a call on the commuter line about a truck in the snow at the top of the southbound on-ramp from Portage onto the perimeter. So kind of as you're turning onto the, getting onto the on-ramp there, there was a truck at the top, kind of in the snow, kind of partially blocking that piece of road there. So kind of creeps up on you there on that on-ramp. So the truck in the snow at the top of the southbound on-ramp from Portage onto the perimeter. Thank you to Nola for giving me a call about that. We got that just before we went into the news there. As well, looking at highways, still seeing conditions out there as partly covered north of Winnipeg, northeast of Winnipeg, and to the east of the city, as well to the south of the city as you make your way down to the U.S.-Canadian border. And still seeing covered conditions in the Morden Winkler area, and then as well as Highway 59, kind of running through Niverville, Ile des Chênes, St. Malo area there. So make sure to check Manitoba 511 if you are getting out on the highways today. But if anything else pops up on your drive, whether you are here in the city or anywhere else in the province, I'd love to hear from you. Give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
Well, Winnipeg, let's get ready to rumble! I couldn't resist. Tonight, the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra is teaming up with Winnipeg Professional Wrestling for something called Brawl at the Hall. That is where, flying elbows meet live violins. Organizers say this event is the first of its kind anywhere in the world. CBC's Jim Agapito met with the organizers to find out what it takes for a collaboration like this to happen.
I'm Devin Bray, the co-owner of Winnipeg Professional Wrestling.
I'm Daniel Bartholomew Poyser. I'm the guest conductor for the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra.
It was the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra's idea to do Brawl at the Hall. I would have never conceived of this idea in a million years. This is a year in the making, and Daniel came to some of our shows in the summer and the fall to get an idea of how the wrestling world works and meet some of the competitors. I think Daniel, being a wrestling fan, has really been helpful because he came in with his knowledge already and some reverence and respect for the sport, and just to take it really seriously on both sides, the music and the wrestling. And I think it's been a really nice marriage.
I kind of freaked out because I grew up watching professional wrestling. So I immediately started talking about all the theme songs and the music and the entrance music. And like talking about my favorite wrestlers. I was surprised how amped up I was, but I was extremely, extremely excited. And I said, the moment I said, if there's anything I can do to help with this, I definitely want to come out and watch this and see it. And I ended up being able to conduct it.
How do you translate something as physical and explosive into, as wrestling into music?
Well, there's a lot of orchestral music that is very violent and very rough and very, very energetic. So it actually goes really well with wrestling.
What's that collaboration going to be like? What are we going to expect?
It's wild. It's like literally like opera and ballet together. The memorization, the athleticism, the timing, the thinking, the acting, it's really a whole package. And the real risk. It's like the wrestlers are athletes of the large muscle groups and the musicians are athletes of the small muscle groups, right? We're bringing that all together today. It's going to be pretty, I actually don't know what's going to be, but what's going to happen.
It's going to be wild.
Because this is the first time, as far as I know, it's happening in the world, on the planet, on planet Earth. In Winnipeg, it's happening here. We have an idea, and looking at the structure of wrestling and what happens there, and the structure of orchestral music and the pieces and the personalities of the different wrestlers, finding ways to make those gel, we're going to see.
My name is Dylan Belmore, but for those in the local wrestling community, they would know me better as the real deal James Roth. Being able to walk into the WSO here with a full orchestra playing me out and playing during the match, so it's certainly going to be different. I'm just going to have to feel it once we're out there. I don't think there's any way to prepare for this type of thing. No one has done this before in the world. So again, for me, it's once I get in there, once the bell rings, and once the music starts, I kind of think all bets are off, and it's just see what happens. Unfortunately, wrestling is almost kind of treated as like an outcast. You're not quite a sport, so we can't treat you like one. You're entertainment, but you're a lower form of entertainment, and I think that's pretty unfair. Hopefully, by bringing wrestling and classical music together, these two worlds are going to mesh together in a wonderful way that people on the music side of things can gain some appreciation for wrestling, and for those of us on the wrestling side will gain more appreciation for the music.
There are going to be people who come tonight that don't realize that, wow, I really love orchestral music. And they're going to be orchestral music fans who are like, I really enjoyed that wrestling. And I'm kind of looking forward to seeing the orchestra when they see these behemoth human beings walking around them. It's not usual in the orchestra to have, shirtless athletes. So that's going to be very funny.
How much fun is that going to be? Do you have tickets to go tonight? So cool. Jim Agapito with guest conductor there, Daniel Bartholomew Poyser, and then wrestler, the real deal, James Roth, and Winnipeg professional wrestling promoter, Devin Bray, all part of that piece. If you're watching on YouTube, you got a real treat. I loved it. The event is tonight, 7:30 at the Winnipeg Centennial Concert Hall if you want to check it out and see if there's still tickets available this morning. And again, thanks to videographer Jason Empson who helped Jim put that together. Well, we have a bit of music before we head into morning sports today, and it comes from Neil Young. You might have heard that just last week, Canadian singer-songwriter Young is giving people in Greenland free access to his catalog of music for a year. He said the reason is, quote, to ease some of the unwanted stress and threats that Greenlanders are experiencing on account of U.S. President Donald Trump. He says, in his view, it's an offer of peace and love. We pulled Neil Young and his band Crazy Horse in this tune. This is Love Earth.
2, 3, 4. Love
an easy thing to do. Love Earth till the water and the air is pure. From the birds in the sky to the fishes deep in the sea. Love Earth. Love Earth. Love Earth, the place where all the children can live. Love Earth, really nothing better to give. Love Earth, and your love comes back to you. So I'm calling out to you. Love Earth. The sky was blue and the air so clean, the water crystal clear. We lived by the sun and had it all. We were living in a dream. Love Earth. Love Earth. Love Earth. We can bring the seasons back. Love Earth. Can you imagine that? Love Earth. Your love comes back to you. So I'm calling out to you. Love Earth. Love Earth. Love Earth. Love Earth. Love Earth. Love Earth. The sky was blue and the air so clean, the water crystal clear. We lived by the sun and had it all. We were living in a dream. Love Earth. Love Earth. Love Earth. Love Earth.
Neil Young and Crazy Horse and Love Earth. Speaking of loving the earth, we're going to find out whether or not a national marine conservation area near Churchill, the premier's pitched this, they're going to be studying it, is a good idea or not. A researcher says it is the right place for this project. There's a number of places in Canada where this could go, so we'll talk more about the Manitoba location that's been proposed. That's coming up on Information Radio just before 8 o'clock. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for being with us here, the whole team on Wednesday morning. We have Sierra Sanders and Abby Adiemi and Darren Marash behind the glass. Heather Wells with your next local news coming up at 7:30. Right now it's 7:25 -9 in time for morning sports. Scott Regere's with us. Good morning.
Hey, Marcy.
So let's start with the Winter Olympics, which when it comes to actual competition, begin today.
That's right. Still 2 days before the opening ceremony, the mixed doubles curling event gets underway this afternoon. The husband and wife team from Chestermere, Alberta, Brett Gallant and Jocelyn Peterman, they will be representing Canada. And like each competitor wearing the maple leaf on the Italian pebbled ice, they will be a candidate for a medal. Still, as CBC curling analyst John Cullen points out, podium finishes are not a given.
Canada is no longer a slam dunk for curling gold or even curling medals anymore. I could honestly imagine 8 of the 10 teams winning it. There's world champions, there's Olympic champions, there's very, very strong mixed doubles teams. Like I think for Peterman and Gallant, they could win a gold medal, they could finish 7th, and neither would be surprising nor disappointing.
The unprecedented parity in global curling, Marcy, is largely down to money. Most countries throw their financial support at one or two rinks, while Canada has probably a dozen teams that could vie for an Olympic medal given the chance, and the government and corporate Canada cannot support them all. There is also the matter of top Canadians coaching abroad. Glenn Howard's a great example. He'll be leading Switzerland's men's rink in Milano Cortina. So an open field as play gets underway this afternoon with Canada taking on Czechia in mixed doubles starting at 12:05 Central Time. Of course, CBC is going to have the live stream of that. And in Olympic hockey news, Marcy, Mark Scheifele not named as the injury replacement for Anthony Cirelli. Apparently, Team Canada's approach was a lateral replacement rather than a next man up situation. The idea being that Cirelli would have been playing on Canada's fourth line in the penalty kill, and thus it's easier to slot Sam Bennett into that role. Scheifele is on Team Canada's reserve list, and there are still concerns around Braden Point, who plays higher up in the lineup for Canada, so we'll wait and see what happens there.
All right, a lot of Winnipeggers hoping he'll make it somehow. To basketball, quite an honor for a Toronto Raptor.
Yeah, in this case, Darko Rajakovic, who's been named the coach of the world team that will compete at the All-Star Game in L.A. later this month. With the likes of fellow Serbian and former league MVP Nikola Jokic part of his squad, Rajakovic is pretty eager to get going.
It's going to be a lot of fun to see all of those international guys being on the same team. There's going to be like 3-4 guys that speak my language, so it's going to be pretty fun. Obviously, it is an amazing honor to represent Serbia, to represent Canada, to represent the whole world. Really excited to get there, to get with guys, and to be part of that great spectacle.
With Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic, Canada's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and others at his disposal, I like the world team's chances against the two American teams who are going to compete, Scotty Barnes and the so-called Stars squad and the Steph Curry-led Stripes team. But back to Rajakovic for a moment. He must be the most well-liked coach in the entire league. During his time coaching the Suns, the Grizzlies, and Oklahoma City Thunder, he and his wife, Dragana, have always focused on giving back, Marcy, through something they call their assist pledge. They continue to do that in Toronto. For every assist the Raptors record this season, the Rajakovic's donate money to kids fighting life-threatening illnesses. They're well over $100,000 in contributions to Toronto hospitals this year alone. So there are all-stars, and then there are all-stars.
Nice. Let's finish with last night's big news out of New York.
For Best in Show at the 150th Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show is the Doberman Pinscher.
Whew. Fans erupting at Madison Square Garden last night as a Doberman Pinscher named Penny won the Best in Show. A razor-crisp performance is how it's being described. Helped Penny top terriers, Afghan hounds, and Malteses alike. Although there is no cash award for claiming the biggest prize in the dog show biz, Penny and her Toronto co-owner Greg Chan will receive a crystal bowl, not a ball. Maybe a ball too, I don't know. They get ribbons and, of course, the immense prestige that comes with the prize. And let's face it, Marcy, if you have seen the countless movies over the years that have villainized Dobermans, thinking of The Omen, Oliver and Company, Up, remember in Up?
Yeah.
Penny's triumph can only help put an end to those stereotypes.
Everyone should watch Best in Show too. We'll be attributing, we'll have a good fun laugh, and then Catherine O'Hara. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, must watch this weekend for sure.
This is a gorgeous dog. Just Googling it while you're talking about Penny. All right, thank you, Scott.
You betcha.
That is Scott Reguer with Morning Sports here on CBC. Still ahead in our medical column. You might be getting out, especially as the temperatures improve a little for us in Winnipeg, for some winter fun. But there are some things to keep in mind when it comes to safety. So that's our medical column today, right after your CBC News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 7:30. It's -9. Let the warm-up begin. We're headed to a high today of -4, even warmer tomorrow. For today, though, there is a very slight chance of snow this afternoon, as well as a bit of a south wind. A Winnipeg mother has been sentenced to more than 2 years after her 23-month-old daughter died from fentanyl intoxication in 2023. CBC's Caitlin Garlick reports.
Sabrina Boulette wiped tears from her eyes as she was sentenced Tuesday.
She previously pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the death of her 23-month-old daughter, Hannah Boulette. Emergency services responded to their home in March 2023 after the girl's father, Gary Bruce, called 911. Almost a year later, police announced Hannah's parents had been charged with manslaughter. An autopsy found she died from high levels of fentanyl intoxication. The girl's father pleaded guilty last month and was sentenced to time served. With credit for her time in custody, Boulette will serve just over 5 more months. Court heard the parents initially denied there were drugs in the home. Boulette eventually told police they lied about what happened. She said she didn't call 911 because she feared their daughter would be taken from them. Court heard Tuesday while the girl's father was an active drug user at the time, Boulette was in treatment for her addiction. The judge who sentenced her said he had hope for her future and encouraged her to get grief counseling. Caitlin Gowerluck, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The move by the province to take over the operation of Golden Door Geriatric Centre is being welcomed by family of people who live there. The provincial government has taken the unusual step of expropriating that Fort Garry personal care home after the owners planned to close it at the end of March. Manitoba's health minister says there were 25 vacant beds in the centre, which they say is unacceptable given the need. Maurice Tryhook's wife has lived at Golden Door for 3 years, and he is happy with this move by the province.
Perfect. I don't understand why they could possibly cut it down, because there's such a demand for places like this. Personal care homes are extremely important, and to lose one would be insane.
Tryhook says over the past few months he noticed more empty beds in the care home and recently saw a sign on the door saying there had been a change in ownership, but had no idea it was the province taking over. Hundreds of Manitobans have been moved into housing as part of the province's strategy to end homelessness. 170 people who once lived in encampments have been housed by the province. The government says another 80 people were moved from shelters into social housing. Marion Willis at St. Boniface Street Link says her team connected 386 people with private sector housing last year.
Whether it's Your Way Home or St. Boniface Street Links or organizations funding through Reaching Home, what really unites all of us is the end game, that goal of ending homelessness.
Willis says homelessness affects people experiencing it in different ways and will take multiple approaches to address the issue. The province aims to end chronic homelessness by 2031. The chief of Pimachikamak Cree Nation says about 116 people have returned home following a large-scale evacuation. A days-long power outage in late December caused widespread water damage in that northern First Nation. About 4,000 people were forced from homes that were no longer safe to live in. Chief David Monius is asking the hundreds of remaining evacuees to be patient while tradespeople work to repair their damaged homes.
We want to make sure that they're returning to a safe environment and safe homes, to ensure that they're able to have water that's good for consumption, but also for cleaning and washing and so forth.
Monius says evacuees are in need of food, clothes, feminine products, and baby supplies. If anyone wants to help, all you have to do is drop off donations at the Best Western Plus on Wellington Avenue in Winnipeg. Well, Pope Leo is adding his voice to those calling on the U.S. and Russia to renew a critical nuclear arms control treaty.
Domani giunge a scadenza il trattato New START, sottoscritto nel 2010.
Leo urging both countries not to let the New START treaty expire tomorrow. Washington and Moscow signed the agreement 16 years ago. The treaty limits the nuclear warheads of both countries and allows each country to monitor the other. In September, Russian President Vladimir Putin proposed an extension, but so far, U.S. President Donald Trump has not responded. You can hear more national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. Economic uncertainty and trade disruptions are making it difficult for Manitoba businesses to plan, invest, and grow. That is according to a new survey by the Manitoba Chambers of Commerce. The top concerns are rising operating costs and government taxes and regulations. Brandon-based Balin Industries is a steel building manufacturer. Senior Vice President Sean Lepers says costs are up, and while they've weathered stressful times, he is optimistic for now.
When Trump came in early last year, when the politics changed in the U.S., certainly there was a lot of uncertainty. But since then, we adjusted. There's tons of concern out there today. I don't think that's really news. It's a different environment than what it used to be.
157 businesses responded to the Manitoba Chambers of Commerce survey. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
Let's get into our regional forecast on CBC. Abby's going to look around the province next.
Yeah, looking around, starting in the southern part of the province, I'll tell you it's a mild start with cloudy conditions in most of the southern regions this morning. We're just going to see a few flurries spotted here and there, though for the northern part, we're talking about snow coming that way. We're looking at about 5 to 10 centimeters of snow coming towards the Thompson and Tuduli Lake region this morning. But down south, Winnipeg, we're looking at temperatures around -10 at this time. It's going to stay around that range through the morning before we get to a high of -4 later in the day. A slim chance of afternoon snow, breezy conditions that will kick in later, and then we'll see highs for the day stay around -4. We might get to -1 before we go to bed later tonight. For the Pembina Valley region, we're looking at temperatures around -10 at this time. Cloudy, warming up to -2. Also a slim chance of afternoon snow and a breezy finish to the day. Brandon is at -5 with some fog patches clearing here and there. Brandon is going to be warming up to 0 later in the day. In the Parkland region, we're looking at -7 in Dauphin at this time. Also some fog spotted there. We get to about 1 degree for the Dauphin region. Gimli's at -11. Cloudy conditions, a slim chance of afternoon snow. Highs around -6. And for the powerful influence surrounding communities, we're looking at temperatures around -9 at this time, expecting periods of snow. High will be around 0. Thompson, -3 at this time. Partly cloudy. Snow arriving today. Expecting 5 to 10 centimeters in some areas. Your high will be around -10. For Tuduli Lake, -28 at this time. We see highs around -18. Wind chill close to -37 this morning. Also expecting about 5 to 10 centimeters of snow in that region. In the Churchill region, we're looking at frigid conditions around -32 with ice crystals reaching a high of -23, though the wind chill already around -40 this morning. So frostbite a minute, take care. Overall, it's a mild condition down south, and then we'll see those snowy transition up north, and Thompson should be getting about 5 to 10 centimeters. But for Winnipeg right now, we're hovering around -10.
People need to imagine my view from where I'm sitting and hosting the show into the control room when the phone rings.
Mm-hmm.
So Abby is on the other side of the glass in the control room. I'm in the studio here at CBC looking out in Portage-Ave. And then what I see Abby behind the microphone doing the weather that you're hearing. And then when the phone rings, whoever it is, Sierra or Corey, whoever's directing the show, tries to be quiet and mindful because Abby's on the air. So all I saw...
I try to elevate my voice to mask it.
All I saw was Sierra's head. And then all of a sudden it was like, she's under the table. We need to buy the director's knee pads or something as they're trying to stay quiet.
Like a mat or something to kneel down on.
Get the phone while you're lying on the ground. I just saw you disappear there as you got the phone. What's the traffic check?
I just got a call from Mark about a water main break on Taché, kind of right in front of St. Boniface Hospital there, or should I say kind of right at the lights of Taché and Goulet, that intersection there. So there's been a water main break there, right at the lights at Taché Goulet, kind of right as you're heading towards St. Boniface Hospital there. So you want to expect delays there. I took a quick look at the live map there, and it was pretty dark red, which indicates slow. So you want to be mindful of that. I know it can get busy around that area at this time as the morning commute gets going. So yeah, again, water main break right at the lights of Taché and Goulet, kind of right there in front of the St. Boniface Hospital. Make sure I let our news team know about that, and hopefully they can maybe get a little bit more insight onto that. But keep that in mind if that is on your commute. It can get quite busy there. But be like Mark, if something is popping up and you see something that you want to let me know about, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
Well, spring might be right around the corner if some groundhogs are to be believed. So there's still plenty of time, though, to enjoy your favorite outdoor winter activities. So you might be skiing or snowboarding, skating or sledding, but there's always some risk involved. For tips on staying safe, we actually have that on our medical column today with emergency room physician Dr. Shazma Mathani, who's filling in for Dr. Bardwaj this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
So tell us from your perspective as an ER doctor, what holds the biggest risk when it comes to outdoor activities?
Well, there's definitely a certain flavor of injuries that I see as an ER doctor in the winter because of the activities that we can do around that time. And so that includes things like head injuries from falls or collisions during sports or activities, broken bones, typically from falling on the ice. So wrists and ankles are the most common. Muscle injuries, because there are lots of winter sports and activities that we do that we don't do in the summer and fall, and we feel like we can dive right into them again in the winter. And so there can be a lot of muscle strains and injuries. And of course, not so much right now in some parts of Canada, but that cold exposure when things get really cold down to like -20, -30 can be a risk too.
Here in Manitoba, that's all the time. Even when we go to like +6 these days, we swing back to that -20. I want to get into head injury prevention for a second here specifically. So what do you hope we keep in mind when it comes to finding the right helmet?
I think the most important thing and the most common misconception I see when it comes to helmets is that there's this assumption that you only need helmets for bicycles. And there are so many other sports and activities that require helmets or that should have helmets from a head injury prevention standpoint. And so when it comes to winter sports in particular, yes, we wear helmets for hockey, but we often forget to wear helmets when we're just skating on the outdoor rink. So you can imagine falling and hitting your head on that hard surface and not having a helmet on can lead to a pretty significant head injury. And so I do recommend wearing helmets when ice skating. Another commonly forgotten one is sledding. So making sure that when you're just, enjoying the afternoon on the sledding hill, you want to have a helmet on, because I often do see injuries related to collisions with another person or, falling backwards and hitting your head on a rock or ice. And so it is important to have helmets on during those activities too. And then of course, skiing and snowboarding. When you are trying to pick out the right helmet, there are some different nuances depending on what the activity is. And so it's important to go to a sporting store that has experience in this and letting them know what activities you want to do, and they can help you pick out the right helmet. And lastly, it's really important to pay attention to the expiry date on a helmet. So helmets do have a lifespan because that foam that protects your head and your brain does break down over time. And so making sure that you're aware of what that expiry date is and replacing the helmet based on the manufacturer's recommendations.
I want to ask about ice itself. Now, this might seem obvious, get good footwear, but is there a best way to keep from slipping and falling?
Yeah, there are a few different things that you can do. I mean, with the freeze and thaw that we often have, there can be ice that develops overnight, and then you get that dusting of snow on top and you can't really see the ice there. And so first and foremost, I like to always make sure that when we're out and about, assume that there is ice hiding in places so that you're prepared for it. If you do hit a patch of ice, make sure that you're using that penguin walk. And so arms out for balance, making sure you're taking kind of slow and short strides to keep a stable base beneath you. That's going to help with preventing slipping. And then like you mentioned, footwear. And in particular, those ice cleats that you can kind of wrap around the bottom of your boot have these little spikes in them that can really help increase traction when you're walking on ice. Making sure that you're sanding or salting your walks as well can help increase that traction, because a lot of times when we slip on ice, that's when we see things like those head injuries, and then broken wrists and broken ankles are the most common ones that I see. When we have icy days here in Edmonton where I work, it's a lot of orthopedic injuries that come in through that door because of slips and falls. And so it's important to protect yourself.
Yeah, because you put your arm out automatically, whether that's what your body does, and there goes your wrist.
Exactly.
So let's talk about frostbite, extreme temperatures when they really drop. Obviously, that's going to be I'm guessing, the biggest risk. But overall, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so frostbite is a big risk when those temperatures get cold or when there's prolonged exposure. And so the areas of the body that are most at risk are going to be your extremities. So your fingers, your toes, your nose, your ears, your chin. And so protecting those with layers is going to be the most important way to prevent that frostbite. So mitts for your hands, warm socks and warm boots for your feet, making sure you have a hat on that's covering your ears, and then putting on like a neck warmer or a scarf over your face to help protect your nose and your chin is really going to to help. Taking breaks inside as well is going to decrease that risk of frostbite. And then when we get even more extreme cold, so, minus 20, minus 30, with prolonged exposure, you are at risk of hypothermia. And so making sure you're taking breaks inside and layering appropriately. So making sure you have a warm kind of wool-based layer, fleece in between, having a good jacket on top, and then taking lots of breaks inside, because that hypothermia, when your core temperature drops, can become dangerous very quickly.
What are your signs that that might be starting to be an issue for you? Heaven forbid you should be in that situation.
For sure. So, when we're thinking about frostbite, if you start noticing any color change in your fingers or your toes, any numbness or tingling, that's an immediate sign to go inside, because that is also the first warning that your body is exposed to cold and that your core temperature might be starting to drop. If you're in a situation when you're outside for a long time, if you start shivering, that's a sign that your body's actively trying to warm you up. And so it's best to get inside. Or in more extreme cases, there can be things like confusion or more sleepiness. And if you see that that's a medical emergency, it's time to call 911 and get someone to a hospital right away.
What are your final words of caution on this for people who obviously, want to stay active and we want to encourage outdoor activity, but what would you say final words of caution are?
For sure. We live in Canada, so it's really important for us in the winter to be able to get outside, and it's important for both our physical and our mental health. And so it's just important to be prepared and plan ahead. So check out the forecast, have a sense of what the day is going to look like. If you're planning on being outside, think about what time of day might be the warmest for being outside. Make sure you have the proper protective gear, the proper layers and clothing, and then get out there and have fun.
Dr. Bardwaj this week, that's our medical column with Dr. Shazma Mathani, emergency room physician. I spoke with her yesterday. Well, if you were with us earlier in the show, then you heard a really interesting interview. A lot of us listen to music to relax, but we heard about a new study that found listening to specific music can verifiably reduce anxiety. So we pulled the tune that I listen to when I need to recenter my mind and come down off the ledge and remember all the positive things in the world and all the good things about myself. Here's U2 and Stuck in a Moment.
Of anything in this world, there's nothing you can throw at me that I haven't already heard. I'm just trying to find a decent melody, a song that I can sing in my own company. I never thought you were a fool, but darling, look at you. Oh, you gotta stand up straight, carry your own weight. These tears are going nowhere, baby. You got to get yourself together. You got stuck in a moment, and now you can't get out of it. Don't say that later will be better. Now you're stuck in a moment, and you can't get out of it. I will not forsake the colors that you bring, the nights you fill with flowers, they left you with nothing. I am still enchanted by the light you brought to me. Listen through your ears, through your eyes, I can see. You are such a fool to worry like you do. I know it's tough, and you can never get enough of what you don't really need now. You got to get yourself together. You got stuck in a moment, and you can't get out of it. Oh Lord, look at you now. You got yourself stuck in a moment, and you can't get out of it. I was unconscious, half asleep, the morning was warm to discover how deep jumping. For me it was a fall. It's a long way down to nothing at all.
You tune Stuck in a Moment on CBC. If you want to call us, tell us about the tune that recenters you. Maybe you have a song that helps you with anxiety or brings you somewhere to a more positive place. We had a really cool interview about it this morning that you can find on the app later. And if you want to call us and tell us about your tune, it's 788-3205. Well, it is 10 minutes ahead of 8 o'clock on Information Radio, and a new national marine conservation area could be coming to Manitoba. It would be on the Hudson Bay coast and stretch from Nunavut to the Ontario border. Premier Wab Kinew announced his support to study this yesterday.
I want Manitoba to be a leader across Canada and around the world on how to build up the economy. So one, that means we need to build the economy. But two, it's about how we do it. And I think that when we're talking about pursuing export and import along Hudson Bay, we can't do that without thinking about the environment. So we went out and we got the best. We've got people who know this stuff from NGO perspective. We got people who understand this from an Indigenous perspective. And we're going to bring more around the table to figure out what we need to do to look after the beluga and everybody else who uses the land and waters here.
Premier Wab Kinew talking about a possible national marine conservation area. They're going to study this. The Manitoba government says it will kick in money for a feasibility study for the waters off Churchill, done with the federal government, Indigenous communities, and Parks Canada as well. So some are celebrating the announcement. Stephen Peterson is Director of Conservation and Research at the Assiniboine Park Conservancy and with us now. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. So you're one of the people that's celebrating. Tell me why.
Yeah, I think we've been doing work in Churchill for a number of years, and we're really, in love with all the wildlife and the place. And so going forward and looking out for Manitoba, but also keeping the environment and beluga really at the top of mind is a great way forward, and we're pretty happy to see that way.
Some people might not know what a marine conservation area really even means. Why is this area a good place for it, and what could it do to help the wildlife?
Yeah, marine conservation areas are really places that set aside kind of really amazing biodiversity and ecosystems, and limit what can and cannot go on in those areas. And so because Western Hudson's Bay is this place full of, we think of beluga and polar bears, but there's amazing seals, there's seabirds, there's all this life, and that life really supports the communities around there. So having some careful thought about how we make sure that we balance both kind of the economic driving forces in Manitoba, but also this incredible environment is really, really important.
So what would it do to help beluga and seal populations? Like if you look at them by the numbers there, and how would this help?
Yeah, so it would put a greater kind of emphasis on monitoring, and it would control some of the activities that could happen within that area. And both of those are ways that you can protect the environment and kind of manage what we're doing in that area.
And we're talking about, there's estimated numbers, 55,000 belugas and a few hundred for harbor seals. Is that right?
Yeah. So we've been doing work on belugas and harbor seals specifically. So, harbor seals seem to be increasing with climate change, but there's many more ring seals and bearded seals in that environment. And then the beluga population is the biggest population that's in Canada, 55,000.
Yes,
so,
I think I misspoke. I think I said 5,500. So yes, 55,000. I do want to know, you mentioned the economy. So yes, we have this proposal to study the area, but we also know that right now developing and expanding the Port of Churchill is on the mind of the Premier as well, and of many in the province. If icebreakers start opening up the port year-round to make goods ship, and if they do start, shipping even things like oil, for example, can you have both of these things at once right in that small bay?
Yeah, I think that's the question we're all concerned about. And also, interested to try and find a way forward. So, around the world, we have examples where we haven't done it right in estuaries and in marine areas. But often, we don't have this thought about a marine protected area or the environmental impacts at the beginning of things. Things just happen, and then we deal with that after the fact. So I think this is a really positive way forward, where we're trying to make a way forward so we both have that environment and we have things that are keeping Manitoba strong.
Okay, so because it's happening in this order, there might be a way to make sure that we're not, after the fact saying, hang on a minute, the belugas are getting in the way of the shipping lanes, or there's a problem in the waters and sharing them, that the priority might be on the wildlife first, on the belugas and such.
Yeah, and there's a number of us that have been working in Churchill to try and collect baseline data over the last number of years. And, between the work that we've doing and what we've learned and the knowledge that's in the communities, there's a wealth of knowledge of what that baseline is. And that gives us a place to start to say, hey, we're going a bit sideways, we need to rein this back, or we need to change how we're doing these operations a bit in order to preserve those populations.
What do we know about beluga behavior? Like if they do manage to open the seaway up, year round for shipping, for example, if that happens, would the belugas like that access?
Probably. Well, we don't really know. So they do spend the winter in areas where there's lots of ice and it's highly mobile. The thought is that natural mobility in the ice is probably different than what icebreakers would create. But again, there's not a lot of information. And then, so it was good that there's a previous announcement as well that talked about looking at the impacts and the feasibility of that year-round ice breaking. I think, we think of the Arctic as a really ice covered, and many of the species there are adapted to that heavy ice cover. So it makes it more important to really try and understand what the impacts of all these activities are in order to go forward.
Thanks very much for weighing in with your expertise. We appreciate having you on CBC today.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. That's Stephen Peterson, Director of Conservation and Research over at Assiniboine Park Conservancy. The Premier, by the way, here for our monthly interview on Friday. Well, let's talk about what's coming up on the show after 8. A Winnipeg family is right now mourning the loss of their mother, who you might have heard in the news this week, died after waiting several hours in the emergency room. They believe their concerns were dismissed by hospital staff because of her age. She was 68 years old. We're going to hear more from the family and some analysis of ageism in the healthcare system coming up after 8 here on Information Radio. Right now to other headlines with Heather Wells.
A Winnipeg mother has been sentenced to more than 2 years after her 23-month-old daughter died from fentanyl intoxication in 2023. Sabrina Boulette wiped tears from her eyes as she was sentenced yesterday. She previously pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the death of her toddler. An autopsy found she had died of those high levels of fentanyl. The chief of Pimachikamak Cree Nation says about 116 people have returned home following a large-scale evacuation following damaging days of long power outage back in December. Chief David Monius is asking the hundreds of remaining evacuees to be patient, and he's also asking for help for those remaining evacuees in Winnipeg in need of food, clothing, and baby supplies. I'll be back with more Manitoba News at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
If you see any problems this morning in traffic, you can update us still heading up to 8 o'clock here. 788-3093. It's -9 and World Report is next.
On cue. I'm Talia Schlanger in for Tom Power. It can be hard to describe music in words, but the award-winning Canadian pianist Bruce Liu does it with desserts.
And even before the concerts, everything I eat is kind of sugar high.
Bruce will be here to talk about why he's trying to incorporate more storytelling into classical music and which Mozart piece tastes like creme brulee.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
It has been 9 months since Lily and Jack Sullivan were reported missing in rural Nova Scotia. CBC investigative reporter Angela McIver brings us the latest on the children's mysterious disappearance and what she's heard from their family. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report.
Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The British Prime Minister is launching an all-out attack on Peter Mandelson today. Keir Starmer says Mandelson betrayed his country. Speaking to the House of Commons today, Starmer blasted Mandelson.
To learn that there was a cabinet minister leaking sensitive information at the height of the response to the 2008 crash is beyond infuriating. And I am as angry as the public and any member of this House.
British police have now launched a criminal investigation into the allegations against Mandelson. 21 people in Gaza have been killed by Israeli airstrikes. The military says its soldiers were fired on in the north of the territory. It is blaming Hamas for violating the ceasefire. Sasha Petrusik has more.
Grief swept over Gaza again today as a stream of stretchers arrived at Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City. Bodies of Palestinians who died in a series of early morning attacks. Israeli shelling and airstrikes hit tent cities after Israel says its soldiers came under fire overnight. Gunfire from militants, Israel says, severely injured one reservist in the north. At the other end of Gaza, there was a rare burst of joy as a group of Palestinians who'd left for medical treatment during the war were allowed to return. Today, I was reunited with my children for the first time in 2 years, says Yusuf Talla. I'm coming back to war, but at least we are together. Hamas officials say some 40 Palestinians have come back through the Rafah crossing with Egypt, while many others say they were sent back by Israel. 56 have been allowed to leave Gaza, though the flow in both directions is much slower than originally planned under the U.S. brokered ceasefire deal both sides signed. Red Crescent official Raid Naim says the Rafah crossing was closed by Israel once again this morning, at least for the day. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Another round of peace talks between Ukraine and Russia has started. The U.S. is mediating the talks, which are being held in Abu Dhabi. And in Kyiv, people are expressing more skepticism about the talks than hope. This woman says that obviously the war will end through negotiations, but it will not be this month or even this year. She says people will continue to die. The opening ceremony for the 2026 Milano Cortina Olympic Games is just 2 days away, and the competition has already started. Today, Canada is on the ice against Czechia in mixed doubles curling, but it is the other kind of ice that is worrying many people in Italy. Ice agents are part of the U.S. delegation security. That is being discussed in Italy's parliament this morning. Briar Stewart has more.
Italy's Interior Minister Matteo Piantedosi stood up in a parliamentary session this morning to try to convince Italians that the presence of U.S. immigration and enforcement agents in the country will have no impact on national sovereignty. They will operate exclusively within U.S. diplomatic premises and will carry out analytical and information sharing activities, he said. He said there's nothing new about Italy's cooperation with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. But that hasn't stopped some of the public backlash. Protests have already taken place on the streets of Milan, and more are planned for this weekend, including on Friday, when the opening ceremony will take place. The controversy around ICE has also prompted U.S. Olympic officials to rename a hospitality space set up for the athletes in the city. It had been called the Ice House and now has been rebranded as the Winter House. A wise move, said U.S. figure skater Amber Glenn.
I hope I can use my platform and my voice throughout these games to try and encourage people to stay strong in these hard times. A lot of people say, you're just an athlete, like stick to your job, shut up about politics, but politics affect us all.
Officials with the International Olympic Committee have tried to dismiss any questions about politics, saying it's imperative that the Games aren't embroiled in any ongoing political tensions. But the questions will keep coming, particularly as world leaders and other dignitaries arrive for the opening ceremony this week. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Milan.
This week marks 9 months since Lily and Jack Sullivan vanished without a trace in rural Nova Scotia, and now the silence surrounding their mother has broken. In an exclusive interview with CBC News, members of Malaya Brooks Murray's Inner Circle are sharing new details about the case and how the family is coping. Angela McIver reports.
It was one of her favorite blankets.
Cheryl Robinson pulls blankets out of a plastic bag belonging to 6-year-old Lily Sullivan and her 5-year-old brother Jack. She's close with the children's mother, Malaya Brooks Murray.
She's just trying to take it day by day.
In early May of last year, Brooks Murray called 911 when she awoke to find Jack and Lily were missing from their rural home an hour and a half outside of Halifax. An extensive grid search of 8.5 square kilometers of dense, rugged terrain turned up little evidence. Cindy Murray is the children's maternal grandmother.
2 kids just go missing without a trace or answers, doesn't make any sense to me. It's just a nightmare.
Last week, RCMP charged the children's stepfather, Daniel Martel, with assault, sexual assault, and forcible confinement related to an adult complainant. He has not responded to multiple requests for comment, but in early January, he did speak to CBC.
I'd say 100% I'm not considered as a suspect at this point.
Staff Sergeant Rob McCammon with the Nova Scotia RCMP Major Crime Unit says it's still being treated as a missing persons case.
There's times we wish we could say more, but we have to protect the integrity of that investigative process.
McCammon says as far as he's concerned, Jack and Lily Sullivan will not become a cold case. Angela McIver, CBC News, Halifax.
In Greece, a speedboat carrying migrants collided with a Coast Guard patrol boat. At least 15 people are dead. 24 other people were rescued and taken to hospital. There is now a search for other survivors. It's not clear how many people were on the speedboat or how the crash happened. Residents of Campobello Island in New Brunswick want some fast action from Ottawa. The federal wharves on the island are in disrepair, and local fishers say their industry could be in jeopardy. Alison McCormick reports.
On a frigid winter weekday, Campobello Island quietly awaits the return of its fishing fleet. Crews have been out dragging for scallops, but soon they'll be back to sell their hard-won catch. The industry brings in more money and employs more people than any other on the island. That's why a recent inspection of its 3 federal fishing wharves has a lot of islanders on edge.
Those all need to be replaced.
Amanda Matthews points out the damaged pilings holding up the head harbor wharf. Matthews is with the Campobello Island Harbor Authority. She says the island's other 2 federal wharves are now either closed or partially fenced off.
Fishermen need wharves to be able to tie their boats to be able to put gear and bait aboard their boat.
There are nearly 100 fishers who make their living trapping lobster, fishing for halibut, or dragging for scallops and sea urchin. Another 60 are employed at fish plants, lobster tank houses, and lobster buying scows. Amanda Johnson is executive director of the Fundy North Fishermen's Association. She says available funding from the federal government is simply not enough to go around.
Harvesters who are contributing $18.8 million in employment income for the province of New Brunswick, they should not have to barter with federal officials to keep their workplace viable.
The Department of Fisheries and Oceans says maintenance is based on needs, impacts, and available funding, but it won't say where Campobello Island sits on that list. Alison McCormick, CBC News, Campobello Island.
The top prize at the most prestigious dog show in the world has a Canadian connection.
Westminster 150 goes to Penny, the Doberman Pinscher. And that's history for Best in Show here at Madison Square Garden.
Penny, the 4-year-old Doberman Pinscher, strutted to Best in Show. Penny's co-owner, Gregory Chan, is from Toronto. He says she is very demanding, very smart, but will do anything for food. Penny is the first Doberman to win Best in Show since 1989. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us here on Information Radio on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. It is 10 after 8, -9, going to be milder than we've had today in the city of Winnipeg. Little snow expected up in Thompson today. Well, this half hour on the show, a Winnipeg family is mourning the loss of their mother who died after waiting several hours in the ER at St. Boniface Hospital. They believe their concerns were dismissed by hospital staff because of their mother's age. She was 68 years old, so we will hear from the family. Also, we're going to hear from a national seniors advocacy group that says ageism in our healthcare system is a chronic issue. So stay tuned. We'll walk you through what happened here in a moment on Information Radio. Right now, Heather Wells has other headlines on stories that we're also following today. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, the province's move to take over the operation of Golden Door Geriatric Centre is being welcomed by family of people who live there. The NDP government has taken the unusual step of expropriating that Fort Garry personal care home after the owners planned to shut it down at the end of March. Hundreds of Manitobans have been moved into housing as part of the province's strategy to end homelessness. 170 people who once lived in encampments have been housed by the province. The government says another 80 were moved from shelters into social housing. And Marion Willis at St. Boniface StreetLink says her team connected 386 people with private sector housing last year. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather Wells.
Thank you.
Abby, what's going on out there?
Cloudy conditions in the southern parts of the province. However, we're seeing the southern regions hovering near -10 degrees this morning, and it's a mild one, and that's what we will also get tomorrow. But if you look at the condition in the northern part of the province, we're seeing temperatures around -32 already in the Churchill region, with the wind chill feeling close to -41. For Winnipeg, -10. It's cloudy outside. We have a slim chance of light snow sometime this afternoon. We get to -4 later. Some south winds will move in. We'll see temperatures hover near -10 for most of the day before we get to -1 later tonight. And tomorrow, we're looking out for a high of +2 in the city. Across the southern region, southern Manitoba, we're looking at a mix of cloudy conditions, some fog patches clearing in the Westman and the Parkland region right now. Temperatures hovering near -8, and morning highs would reach 1 degree in some areas in the south. Though the winds will be picking up by the afternoon period, we'll have a slim chance of light snow in the forecast. The north, we're seeing temperatures range from -9 around the Par to -32 with ice crystals in Churchill. Most of the regions expecting periods of snow. We're seeing local blowing snow around Flin Flon at this time, and we see about 5 to 10 centimeters of snow expected for the Thompson region. Wind chills around -41 as mentioned in the Churchill area. But overall, it's more like a mix of mild season in the south, and then the snow is still taking a hold of the northern part of the province. Right now, Winnipeg, we are at -10.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Sarah, what's going on with the commute?
Good morning. Still hearing about that water main break right at the lights of Taché and Goulet, so kind of right in front of St. Boniface Hospital there. I got a call from Mark, about 45 minutes ago, and he mentioned that it was getting a little bit backed up there, so you want to make sure to expect delays there in that area, because it does get quite busy during the morning rush hour and rush hours in general, I should say. So water main break right at the lights of Taché and Goulet, the intersection there. So kind of right there in front of St. Boniface Hospital. You want to make sure you are keeping that in mind as you are driving, and expect delays in that area as well. Still seeing reports from Manitoba 511 of many highways in the north of Winnipeg, northeast and east of Winnipeg are partially covered, as well as you head down south towards the Canadian-U.S. border, with Highway 59 being reported as fully covered. So you want to keep that in mind, as well as seeing highways in the areas of Morden and Winkler being covered as well. So keep that in mind if you're getting out on the highways today. Make sure to check Manitoba 511 for up-to-date conditions and any other situations. Still a little bit of time left in the show, so if something does pop up on your commute this morning, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, a Winnipeg woman is calling for an investigation after the death of her mother over at St. Boniface Hospital. She says her mom's condition wasn't taken seriously by healthcare staff and she wants answers. Her mom, Judy Burns, was found unconscious in her home on the morning of January 18th. She was taken to the hospital. It's when her daughter says the struggle started. CBC's Gavin Axelrod spoke with Samantha Burns about her mom yesterday.
GI doctor came in and explained to us that our mom had diverticulosis.
Oh yeah, diverticulitis.
That means that's why she was bleeding. That's why she is confused. This is all normal. Your mom is elderly. She was not elderly. She was 68 years old. This was not her normal self at all. Being confused, not able to stand, that is not something our mom ever had an issue with. The GI doctor said that he would do a colonoscopy on her outpatient. He would request it. We requested that our mom get a scope, which was denied multiple times. After continuing requesting it, the doctor said if she bleeds again, we will do a scope. But unfortunately, by the time she was bleeding again, there was too much coming out of her and it was too late. She already coded. Our mom was not elderly, and even if she was, and they deserve the exact same care that I do or my 3-year-old son gets. Everyone deserves the same care, and just to be dismissing it as this is normal.
Samantha Burns speaking with CBC's Gavin Axelrod about her mom, Judy Burns' experience at St. Boniface Hospital leading to her death. As you just heard, she says she's concerned about ageism in the healthcare system. Laura Tamblin-Watts is as well. She's been on our program before talking about this. She's CEO of Canada's National Seniors Advocacy Organization, CanAge, and she's on Zoom today. Good morning.
Good morning.
What are your thoughts on hearing about Samantha Burns talk about her mom and what happened?
This is a tragedy, but it's a tragedy that we hear all too often. In fact, a 2024 study by Statistics Canada found that 2/3 of Canadian seniors had felt ageism had been really directly affecting them, usually affecting their health. There's nothing worse than going to a healthcare provider, particularly in an emergency situation, only to be dismissed. And 68 certainly isn't elderly. But again, no matter what our age is, we deserve the same attention, respect, and care of anybody.
What do you suggest a family does? I mean, not just even in this case, but if someone says to you in the healthcare system, this is normal for someone their age, what is normal for someone, who is elderly, for example? I know there's exception taken with that word, but I guess, what do you suggest patients do to advocate for themselves? Is there a range of things we are supposed to accept that are normal?
It's very helpful if you can come with a bit of a notebook or a chart saying what your parent is usually like and talk about the differences between it. It really shouldn't matter what your age is, it's what your condition is. Is it a matter of frailty? Frailty isn't age. Frailty is your healthcare condition. If she was walking normally before and is now shuffling, that's not due to age. That's due to some type of health condition. If her cognitive challenges are brand new and she never had them before, again, that change is different. Pushing back constantly about that is really the only thing that you can do, and make it extremely clear that you're not taking that as an answer.
I want to get to the label, I guess, the label elderly. You said you don't often hear it in someone that's 68. Do you hear that word, though, being a problem in our healthcare system?
Absolutely. And the word elderly is often code for some of the other words that we call people who are older. You hear the term bed blockers. You hear that people are stuffing up hallways full of older people who can't get into long-term care. And of course, it's not an issue that older people are facing. It's an issue of the inadequacy of our healthcare system. What we do know is that older people's pain, and particularly older women's pain, is treated as less serious. They're less likely to get follow-ups and tests, and they have a much harder hill to climb in justifying the very fact that they're there using our healthcare system. Our healthcare system is very concerned that people will get stuck in our hospitals and not be able to get discharged. And as a result, in many cases, they're not brought into the healthcare system appropriately for fear that folks won't be able to be discharged out again.
What questions need to be asked out of this case when we try to determine what went wrong here in terms of, I mean, there are mistakes that get made in the healthcare system. There could have been with diverticulitis. I hope I'm saying it right. Diverticulosis, pardon me. I don't know how often that is normal to leave someone who has had an initial bleed and such. But what questions would you have as they move forward looking at this?
Let's start off first at being dismissed. And the way that I understand the story unfolded, the matter was dismissed by any number of doctors as being elderly. And it's ludicrous that a 68-year-old woman who had a very acute change in her condition should be dismissed at all. She certainly isn't geriatric, even in the most conservative sense of the term. We need to know, why wasn't her pain and her condition followed up with? Why was she shunted off to an outpatient type follow-up? Why was she having to justify getting scans and conditions? This also, however, needs to be looked at in a more systemic issue. Certainly in the Manitoba healthcare system, we've had real problems with systemic issues, including racism. This is the time to have a look at the systemic issue of ageism as well.
What's it like for loved ones who have to advocate for parents and grandparents?
It's incredibly distressing. Often, doctors or healthcare providers will ask the younger person, the care supporters, what's happening with your mom? What's happening with your dad? First of all, they're supposed to be talking to the patient no matter what their age, if they can give consent. And when they are seeing that their loved one is not getting the care and attention that they deserve, and they're being dismissed out of hand, often overtly because of age, or even in many cases, covertly because of their age, it's hugely upsetting. You feel paralyzed, you feel scared, and you feel worried about your own journey. What is it going to be like when you're not 50, but you're 75 and you're trying to get care? So it undermines faith in the healthcare system for yourself, and it's incredibly upsetting when you're trying to advocate for somebody else.
Thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.
That's Laura Tamblin-Watts, CEO of CanAge, National Seniors Advocacy Organization, weighing in on ageism, an allegation that a family has made here happened to their mom in our healthcare system here. She died in last month in St. Boniface Hospital. Now, CBC reached out to the WRHA for a comment. In a statement, a spokesperson said, quote, "We extend our heartfelt condolences to the family during this very difficult time in the passing of their loved one. We're committed to supporting the family with care and compassion, and our patient relations team has been in contact to hear their concerns. Medical leadership and patient safety teams at St. Boniface Hospital are reviewing the circumstances to determine appropriate follow-up," end quote. The province is still determining whether Judy Byrne's death meets the criteria for a critical incident. If it does, this would be the second critical incident death in recent weeks involving a patient at St. Boniface Hospital.
The year of the horse gallops in, and CBC invites you to celebrate. Experience the 2026 Manitoba Chinese Business Gala, February 6th at Club Regent Event Center. An evening of networking, food, performances, and awards. Celebrate the Chinese Lunar New Year and recognize the remarkable contributions of Manitoba's Chinese business community. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for more.
That's coming up, end of the week. It is -9 in Winnipeg here. We've been there all morning. Brandon is cloudy, -5. Thompson going to get some snow today. It's -22 and also cloudy for you. Here in Winnipeg, we're going to go to a high of -4. And then overnight, the temperature rises to about -1. Tomorrow, we're going to be above 0 if that holds. In the forecast, we're going to see 2 degrees in the city of Winnipeg. And over in Brandon, we had been saying 6 degrees. That's slightly shifted, but even still, tomorrow you could see a nice high of 3. So you'll be above 0 too if this all stays as it's looking this morning. Next on the show, finally, a lot of fans of Manitoba's own Doc Walker might be saying, as the country legends last November were inducted into the Manitoba Country Music Hall of Fame. It was a major milestone in their 30-year career. Their iconic track, Rocket Girl, is still one of their most beloved hits. If you never heard it, it's a heartfelt father-to-daughter anthem about resilience.
She said,
I got this hat in California from a man on the street whose name is Joe. Have you ever been to California? Well, you really gotta go. She said, I knew a boy down in Miami. He was a welder just like you. I love the ocean in Miami. I've never seen anything quite so blue. And I say, hey, where we going today, rocket girl? Tell me what life is like past that city limit sign. Dream your dreams in my ear. Baby, just get me out of here. Fly me around this world. Rocket girl. She said, have you ever been to Albert? Wheat fields as far as you can see. Have you ever seen the prairies? Well, someday I'll take you there with me. And I say, hey, where we going today, rock girl? Tell me what life is like past that city limit sign. Dream your dreams in my ear. Baby, just get me out of here. Fly me around this world. Rocket girl. I never tell her she's been busted. I know she's never been anywhere just like me. But it makes her feel like Cinderella. And I get to see the world for free. I just say, hey, where we going today, rocket girl? Tell me what life is like past that city limit sign. Dream your dreams in my ear. Baby, just get me out of here. Fly me around this world. I just say, hey, where we going today, rocket girl? Tell me what life is like past that city limit sign. Dream your dreams in my ear. Baby, just get me out of here. Fly me around this world. Around this world. Fly me around this world. Rock the girl.
Doc Walker and Rocket Girl. Last year, finally into the Country Music Hall of Fame in this province, a milestone in their 30-year career, and they're just really nice guys. Speaking of really nice folks, I want to give thanks to the folks that worked on the show today. So our associate producers with items in today's program, Corey Funk and Sophia Peralta-Barone, reporter Jim Agapito, videographer Jason Empson. From our news department, Heather Wells, Megan Ketchison, Darren Bernhardt, and Chris Armstrong this morning, as well as our producers Nellie Gonzalez and Leif Larson. Our Studio 15 crew, Abby Adeyemi, as well as Darren Marash and Sierra Sanders, who's been directing today for Corey. Thanks, guys. Appreciate all your time and your work. And thank you for listening to Information Radio here. We are getting ready to wrap the morning show. We've got another newscast coming up. But remember, Radio Noon has their call-in today. And today, they're talking music. Motley Crue announcing yesterday they're coming to Winnipeg. It is one of the bigger actual concert announcements in a while. We used to get a lot of major acts. Beyonce, The Weeknd, Drake, Rihanna, Cher. But seems like everyone's going to Toronto now. We're going to talk to Eric Alper on the call-in today about why and asking you to share your dream headline artist here in Winnipeg. Who would you like to see here? That's between 12:30 and 1 on the call-in. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. It's a little bit messy out there as we warm up in Winnipeg. We're headed to a high today of -4, currently at -9. We're going to feel a bit of a southerly wind as well this afternoon. The move by the province to take over the operation of Golden Door Geriatric Centre is being welcomed by family of people who live there. The provincial government has taken the unusual step of expropriating that Fort Garry personal care home after the owners planned to close it at the end of March. Manitoba's health minister says there were 25 vacant beds in the care home, which they say is unacceptable given the need. Maurice Tryhook's wife has lived at Golden Door for 3 years, and he is happy with this move by the province.
Perfect. I don't understand why they could possibly cut it down, because there's such a demand for places like this. Personal care homes are extremely important, and to lose one would be insane.
Tryhook says over the past few months he has noticed more empty beds in that care home. He recently saw a sign on the door saying there had been a change in ownership, but had no idea it was the province taking over. A Winnipeg mother has been sentenced to more than 2 years after her 23-month-old daughter died from a fentanyl intoxication in 2023. Sabrina Boulette wiped tears from her eyes as she was sentenced yesterday. She previously pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the death of her toddler, Hannah Boulette. The little girl's father pleaded guilty last month and was sentenced to time served. With credit for her time in custody, Boulette will serve a little more than 5 more months. Hundreds of Manitobans have been moved into housing as part of the province's strategy to end homelessness. 170 people who once lived in encampments have been housed by the province. The government says another 80 people were moved from shelters into social housing. Marion Willis at St. Boniface Street Links says her team connected 386 people with private sector housing last year.
Whether it's Your Way Home or St. Boniface Street Links or organizations funding through Reaching Home, what really unites all of us is the end game, that goal of ending homelessness.
Willis says homelessness affects the people experiencing it in different ways and will take multiple approaches to address the issue. The province aims to end chronic homelessness by 2031. Well, slowly but surely, some evacuees are returning to Pimicikamak Cree Nation. Chief David Monias says about 116 people have gone back. A days-long power outage caused widespread water damage. Frozen or burst pipes and flooding meant hundreds of homes were no longer safe to live in. Monias isn't sure exactly how much longer it will be before houses are repaired and everyone can go back.
They're looking at maybe 5 to 10 houses is what they're looking per day. But how long that takes depends on the severity of the damage that's in the house.
About 4,000 people were forced out. Monias says evacuees are in need of food, clothing, feminine products, and baby supplies. He says if people want to help, they can drop off donations at the Best Western Plus on Wellington Avenue here in Winnipeg. President Donald Trump's border czar says the number of immigration enforcement officers in Minnesota will be seriously reduced after state and local officials agreed to cooperate by turning over arrested immigrants. Tom Homan just moments ago saying about 700 federal agents will immediately be withdrawn from the immigration operation around Minnesota.
This is smart law enforcement, not less law enforcement. It's safer for the community, safer for the officers, and safer for the alien.
Roughly 3,000 federal officers are currently deployed in Minnesota. Economic uncertainty and trade disruptions are making it difficult for Manitoba businesses to plan, invest, and grow. That is according to a new survey by Manitoba Chambers of Commerce. The two top concerns are rising operating costs and government taxes and regulation. Brandon-based Balin Industries is a steel building manufacturer. Senior Vice President Sean Lepper says costs are up, and while they've weathered stressful times, he is optimistic for now.
When Trump came in early last year, when the politics changed in the U.S., certainly there was a lot of uncertainty. But since then, we adjusted. There's tons of concern out there today. I don't think that's really news. It's a different environment than what it used to be.
157 businesses responded to that survey by the Manitoba Chambers of Commerce. You can get the very latest news as it develops throughout your day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather Walls, with us each and every morning from our news department. Okay, let's have a last look at your morning commute with Sierra.
Good morning. I got a call from Tim, northbound Sherbrooke, just about a block past Ellis there. So northbound Sherbrooke at Ellis. There were emergency crews on scene tending to a situation going on there in an apartment block. So there was a fire truck across the left curb lane and the median lane there, as well as a police cruiser on scene. He mentioned that it was kind of bottlenecking and was starting to get backed up. As well, Winnipeg Traffic Management Center reporting northbound Lagimodiere past Warman. There's a stall blocking the median lane. You want to make sure to keep right to pass. So stall blocking the northbound median lane at Lagimodiere past Warman. And then finally, keep an eye out for that water main break at Goulet and Taché there right by the St. Boniface Hospital.
Okay, a couple of things to wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Abby.
Relatively mild across the southern part of the province, and we're tracking snow moving through the north this morning. We're seeing temperatures down south between -5 and -12. We will see highs between 0 and -1 for most of the region, but the north expecting 2 to 10 centimeters of snow today.
Okay, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Well, we're bound to see some melting between today and tomorrow, so we'll see how all that goes here in Winnipeg and in Brandon as well. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Information Radio here on CBC. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and on behalf of our whole team, take care, be well, have a great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. The Current's next on 89.3.